The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it, weekend editions here. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Mark Kraynak arriving shortly. It is Pinstripe Preview. How cool is it to be a part of a pre-bowl game show? And Nebraska and Boston College locking horns in the soup, it looks like, out in New York City, Yankee Stadium, the Bronx. Plenty of rainfall, so I don't know, cue up your Georgia-Nebraska bowl game memories from yesteryear. I think that was Amir's junior year in the slop. The Big Red got it done. I think it was 24-19 over Georgia and Todd Gurley. Don't know that there's going to be a Gurley type back on the field today for Boston College. But hey, Elijah, Nebraska, a chance to do some work in postseason. Great to have you in. We'll get our starting five shout-outs as we appreciate you being in the stream with us this morning here. Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Twitter, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter, of course, KFOR Facebook and Twitter. So we'll get those shout-outs going. We'll talk Nebraska, Boston College, and kind of the larger picture of today and beyond. Can't wait for it, man. Excited about it. It's been a long time coming for Nebraska fans that you get postseason. It is here. Got a good slate of bowl games today. A lot of good promotion for this. Rule of the day was right on about USC over A&M. Now,
they're saying I was right on. Give me some credit here, Smitty. I called my shot.
That's what I was trying to spit out. Elijah was right about USC over A&M. You were right. Shouldn't have happened. 17-point ball game. Turnover by USC on the goal line. You had a lead with 1:49 left if you're A&M. Should have been good. The Fighting Trev should have handled SC last night by 3 scores. But Elijah, at Herbal Essence, follow him on Twitter, prevails. It's fine.
I texted you at 1:15 in the morning. I texted you to brag because I stayed up for the game. So, and I'm glad I did. That was very close, like midway.
You're glad you texted the brag?
Well, no. I was close to not watching the end of the game. I'm glad I did stay up, and then I'm glad I did text and brag at 1:15 in the morning because it's a good call by me. But you know what's interesting about today's Schmitty? Brand new experience in radio for me today. Pre-game show for a bowl game. Never done. Yeah, it's new. It's wild to think about because I've been doing this for, I think it's my 6th football season.
It is 6 years, and told you you'd get to that finish line. I said, Elijah, just keep on grinding, brother. We'll get to do a pre-bowl game show at some point. Just hang with me. Hang with me.
I can die in peace now.
Right. Just as long as we're not doing this same bowl game a year from now. A little bit of climbing the ladder is hoped for if you're a Nebraska fan. But no, I won't lie to you. My night was fun, dude. We went out after our road show at Ameristar, and thanks to the great folks at Ameristar for having us out. We did a road show in Council Bluffs yesterday for the Friday show, and we caught up, me, Kraynak, and Elijah, and the Iron Horse. We went out for some about 2-inch thick steaks. And then it was food coma time for me, man. I got home and crashed out. So took over the remote, put on my thunderstorm sound effect, and was out. We'll see how long the peace lasts this morning before the German Shepherd starts blitzing me. But we'll get to our starting 5 shout-outs. Always find us and like and subscribe on Hail Varsity YouTube. So Kraynak is rebooting his computer. He's en route. We'll check in with Brandon Vogel from Counter Read. Great stuff from the good folks at Counter Read on this matchup. And we'll spend some time with the Iron Horse. Gary Sharp will be with us. Real Red Reaction on KFOR over the airwaves. and digitally later today around 2:30. Our post-game show, final post-game of the year, is Bill Dolman going to join us on that, myself and Elijah anchoring some thoughts. So let's get our shout-outs going. Big thanks to 3-Putt for getting in first and getting in early. Uncle Larry, good to have you. Andrew is here. Mr. Erickson checks in as well. NASCAR Eric up and Adam at it. And good to have you. Tuck says we should win by 28. Tuck, I've kind of seen that floating out there. Seen a few predictions where Nebraska wins by 17 or more. I could see that happening, but I'm just curious with how Nebraska handles, really both teams handle the field conditions, the slop. I know that Boston College played in a rainstorm against Michigan State, won a tight ball game. Shane is here. Rick checks in. Good to have you, Rick. Arlo is here. Tim in Idaho says, what's up? Justin, good to have you, bud. Eat Beef says, let's do this thing. Kevin down in Texas. Kevin says, let the Johnsons hang out. Come on, go Big Red. There you have it. It could be a big day for Emmett and Ramir. That's a good take. KG is in. Drunk Monk says GBR. Mike and Callie up early with us. Mike, thank you. Walter imploring me to hurry the hell up and to leave a couple of coaches in New York when the team leaves the bowl game today. Red Knight is here. Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, says, what's up? Says, morning, fellas. I've been rolling smoke on some pork belly burnt ends since 6 a.m. Brian, send us a shot of what you're doing on the smoker, bud, and we'll get that here up before the show. Kraynak is in. How are we, dude? Now he froze.
Yeah, that was really poor timing on your end there. That was unfortunate.
He looks like he's going to say something profound.
I see. He looks surprised. There
My
seems
back.
to be
Your audio. There you are. Hey, Kraynak. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, good to see you. Obviously, you're having great computer cooperation this morning.
Mine was being a bastard as well.
Yeah, I know. It was a tough night. Tough
You
morning.
want to go get some steaks?
And we got some good advice from the comments, man. Don't worry about Yelp. Don't get on don't get on anything that does like the reviews. Just listen to the folks in our comments, because we were advised to maybe not go check out a newish restaurant, right? In the comments last week. In hindsight, got to say I agree, right? Like, don't want to call them out. I think they're going to be fine. I don't think they're quite there yet. Example, I get a tequila yesterday, order a tequila. Okay. Like, hey, give me a little salt on the rim. Y'all saw how much salt was on there.
Now, to their defense, you did ask for the bottle.
Well, no, listen, you're making up stuff now. Like, we have witnesses. I just but a little salt on the rim, right? A little salt. Like, and in my head, I'm thinking like one of those packets, the iodized salt packets that you get. Thinking that much. Dude, I was thinking quarter cup.
You had to brush off.
Literally.
You had to brush off salt on a plate, and you could draw your name in the salt. Kraynak could have peed in the snow, so to speak, like Zorro.
No, because everything would have been absorbed, right? Like, that's actually been a problem. I am lightly salted today.
I'll take the bottle. What's your finest well? But hey,
it was okay though, right?
It was good. It was good company.
Yeah, I was saying that's sometimes the most important thing is the time spent with loved ones.
Oh, that's special.
It's not the fact it's the Pinstripe Bowl. It's the fact you're going to a bowl game. Right?
There it is. That's the best comparison.
We bring it all back to football. Yes. So
life will humble you, right? I mean, do you remember when we would sit there and just laugh and shake our heads at like the Little Caesars Bowl or the Pinstripe Bowl? And now you're just like,
yeah. Remember? Well, the complaint was when you played in the Holiday Bowl back-to-back years, you're like, it's the same bowl game, and now what are we?
Son of a bee, we get to go to San Diego.
I was
Right.
14 years removed, and it's like, oh well, at least they're playing in a bowl game.
Yeah, Iowa Russ checks in and is horrified about the field. Field is an absolute mess. You've had the
really.
Oh yeah, the
Well,
footage.
I know the rain's been there, but I haven't seen any footage yet. Is it pretty bad?
They have grounds crew folks out this morning on duty with the leaf blower machines.
Okay.
Using them on the grass, and it's trying to separate the Red Sea. I mean, you just see blotches of water. That's how they're trying to dry this thing.
Our colleague Damon Benning put a video up on
Yes.
Twitter, so go check that out if you want to see
my
the field
God.
conditions early. It's always fun whenever you know a pregame talking point is going to be Nebraska getting the cleats right. Like, you know how like you start a game and it's raining, and then the TV broadcast gets into the fact, well, the whatever team today decided to use the removable cleats that are a little bit longer, whereas their opponents using the short molded cleats. Like, whenever that's a talking point,
That's
like,
big. There was some footage that popped on my timeline last night with Bill Belichick talking, conditions, and he talked about, all right, you can't have the old Taylor Martinez cleat setup where your tape goes around your spikes, right? That can't be a thing today with Nebraska when we talk tape. The other thing is all skill people need to be wearing sleeves today, because with the wet conditions, it's even slicker. So you can't have skin on ball. That sounded awful, but it's real. So your skill guys, your backs, your wideouts, tight ends need to be wearing sleeves, and then you got to make sure the gloves you're using are, in fact, there to. It's not a warmth thing, but it's the type of grip you get is going to be super valued, and that's obvious. But I guess there's different types of levels of stickum on the palms of some of these gloves. So yeah, the equipment dudes are going to be super important today.
Yeah.
But,
well,
I mean, Boston College listen, 2 teams, 2 different months, right? We know how November went for Nebraska. We know how November went for Boston College, 3-1 with a new quarterback. And they're averaging about, 182 bills a game rushing the football.
yeah.
Yeah, Kobe's right on. Kobe, good to have you in. 2 hands on the ball, this situation, for sure, for sure.
Is the solution, he says.
Yeah.
Is the solution. That's all we need to worry about. Those grounds people might as well leave. Just get 2 hands on the ball. That's all you got to do.
Cover it up.
That's all you got to do.
Run Larry Zonka style.
Most baseball fields, the surface has, that has like sand and all that crap beneath it so that it drains very quickly. So I'm surprised that it's standing water enough that you're just blowing it off with a leaf blower. My God. Like, has it just been pouring there? Like, is it an all-timer kind of rain, or the floods? Is this the apocalypse? Like, what's happened? Like, how come the rain is not dripping into the...
Well, you also have the fact
it's 40 degrees and drizzle right now.
As a non-grass expert, but maybe an enthusiast.
That kind.
Yeah.
You look at it and you go, like, is the grass that is designed to be played on all summer long made to drain well in the wintertime? That's a question.
Exactly, with maybe the frozen subterranean stuff going on, right? Frozen earth. Yeah. We bring on turf expert Brandon Vogel. Brandon, you've mowed lawns before, correct?
I have never as a bad boy, just as a regular civilian.
Nobody wants to be a part of bad boy right now. Right?
I do not have a mower for Rebels, but yes, I've mowed some lawns.
Well, there's a very lawn-centric kind of thing happening here with this game. So apparently you're having to use leaf blowers on the field right now, according to video evidence, to blow the water off of the field. If that doesn't work, Brandon, what is the backup technique to remove that water as a lawn expert?
Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing.
Tarp.
Okay.
You know, like the
Covered
NASCAR,
in
like
tarp.
the jet dryers from NASCAR, they drive around the track. Like, can you do that on a field?
How about a
Get
bad boy
NASCAR
mower?
Eric in.
How about get some bad boy mower folks out there? Reverse the blades. You reverse the blades, ceiling fan style, right? Yeah, yeah. Gotta evaporate the water. You can
I get a straw. Oh, thank you, KG, for that.
Yeah.
Rick.
Folks, how we feeling, man? It's the first time we've gotten to do this in a long time. You, me, and Kraynak, and it's Elijah's first bowl game pregame party here.
Yeah, that really drives it home. I'm wishing BTN didn't put on the 96 Fiesta Bowl, which just started 9 minutes ago. If you want to check in on that and need a comparison point for what we'll see today. So yeah, that was the heart was in the right place, but for me, it kind of ended up being a little bit of a tough programming slate. It's exciting. I kind of, I think like a lot of people when the Pinstripe Bowl was announced, I was kind of like, meh. But watching the bowl activities this week, like seriously, like if the cold doesn't bother you, like this is such a better spot for a bowl game than being in Phoenix. Nothing against Phoenix. It's warm, that's nice. But like just seeing some of the things they've been able to do and listening to Matt Rule speak about what it actually means to him, and it seems pretty genuine to play in New York. It's ended up being pretty cool, I think, for Nebraska, and hopefully the players felt that way as well.
Brandon, we were trying to rack our brains. I don't know if you've looked at this. We went to dinner last night, pregame show. It's called show prep. We should call that show prep, by the way, quarterly. But we were trying to think, out of all the Power 4 teams, Nebraska's never played Boston College ever, which is just shocking, in 100 plus years of football for both schools. We're trying to rack our brains, like, are there other Power 4s that Nebraska has not played? Somebody mentioned Vanderbilt as potentially a team that Nebraska hasn't played, but that list is pretty short, right? Is there somebody else we're not thinking of?
I think Vanderbilt would definitely be on there. I knew this at one point, and I think there's like maybe 5 or 6. And a lot of it, if I remember correctly, it's mostly like ACC, SEC. I think for the most part, Nebraska got to a lot of the Pac-10/12 schools, at points over the year. But yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like, no, Mississippi State. Nebraska played Mississippi State in the Sun Bowl.
Oh wow, that's because that just came to my head too. I was like,
yeah, it's played Mississippi. Yeah, sorry, this isn't very good.
Home and home. Radio. No, it's okay. Home and home with Wake. I know. So that happened. So there were, like, we were thinking Virginia. Has that happened? And like Chris mentioned, like a 1960s game that Nebraska played Virginia, I think.
Yeah, Virginia might be one of them. I don't know. Yeah, there's probably maybe just 3 or 4 then at this point. Once you check Boston College off the list.
Well, there's more bowl games to be had, right? Folks, as we dive into this, I want to start off with what this game can mean for Nebraska as we apply it to the final one of this season and then the springboard into next season with what you got back, assuming you survive another round of portal. That can help you, and Nebraska's still shopping for the right offensive lineman. You don't want to lose anybody, but just in general, Boston College ended really strong. Nebraska did not. Now, Nebraska had a better shot to be 2-2 at minimum, and they ended up with just 1 win in November. But you can kind of rewrite things a little bit. I mean, that's what's remembered with each team. It wasn't a 3-1 November for Boston College. It's what you do in the bowl game with 2 of your captains opting out. And I'm not throwing shade because if I'm a first or second round guy, I'm probably not going to go either on this field. But it's a lasting impression here for both teams. And I'm also interested here, and we talk about some of the new faces, new roles, youth we're excited about. They've gotten the reps. That's awesome. But this will be, baptism by fire for some of them. What's the drop-off going to be like with some of these young guys coming in role-wise? You've seen some spot duty by guys, and they've done that spot duty well. Well, that duty expands today potentially.
Yeah, I mean, what's this game mean for Nebraska? Like, I don't think it meaningfully changes anything about what's to come in 2025 in terms of the team itself. But you're right. I think it does change a lot in perception because people do remember the bowl game. In the case of Nebraska, it becomes the next 7 months of, are people writing about 7-6 Nebraska that had its first winning season since 2016? Or are they talking about 6-7 Nebraska, which hasn't had a winning season since 2016? And again, like, that doesn't change anything with like what the team actually has to do over those 8 months of the off season. But perception wise, it sure would be nice to end the season on a win. I do think there's some value in Nebraska getting all of this prep. Like, we talk a lot about how the college football schedule is pretty crappy right now for players and coaches. In the case of Nebraska, I think one of the benefits has been with the turnover in the coaching staff in particular is it gets this game with the two coordinators it's going to have going into next year. So when you go from this into, the off-season workouts, which are player-led, but then eventually spring ball, it'll feel like you've already started. So I do think there's some benefit to that.
Brandon, I don't want to get way too far ahead of myself, but if you go to the 2023 Pinstripe Bowl, it featured Rutgers and Miami. Fantastic game. Go check out the highlights if you haven't done so. It's like it was an incredible football game. But you look at the direction of both of those teams. Rutgers, I think, a little bit disappointing this season with what you had Monangai. You bring in a quarterback that you like. Yeah, finish record-wise very similar to what you were last year. Flip it around, you look at Miami. They make a college football playoff type run with the season they had this year. I know they come up just a little bit short, but they were much improved. They got a couple of guys right in the transfer portal, and you saw the season that they had. Is that what the expectations are going to be for Nebraska next season? If Matt Rule lives up to expectations, is it going to be a season where it's maybe not college football playoff, but you're in contention in November? Is that what it's going to take for Matt Rule in Nebraska next year for next season to be a success if Nebraska's moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's where you're at. I think that's, a program in a very similar spot with a very similar record after 2 years. I think that's where Wisconsin's at. Like, that's why you hire guys like Matt Rule and Luke Fickell, is to get those results. So, it's hard to forecast that far out, but I don't see, you don't want to be going into November at 5-3, 4-4, something like that again, and you're like trying to, well, let's have a November to remember for once, and maybe claw your way to 8-4. That would be improvement, but it's going to be interesting too, because the Matt Rule 3-year trajectory thing is going to be the story, like all 2025. You got a little bit of great. Well, you got more because you started stronger than Rule had in his first years at Temple and Baylor, and then this year, it's debatable whether you saw much of an increase, if an increase at all. So now there's a good deal of pressure, I think, to really take a big step in year 3, whether that's fair or not, given all of the change in college football compared to when Rule did it the first time. That's there. Those are the dots that are there to connect. So that's going to be what it is for Nebraska in 2025.
Brandon Vogel with us now. How should we think about bowl games now? Like, what role that they play within a program? Because if you think back, I don't know, 10 plus years ago or so, it was truly a bridge between the previous season and the next season. And it sort of, whatever happened in the bowl game kind of portended the future a little bit. now with roster movement, how should we think about bowl games? Can we draw any conclusions from this game for what we might see next year, or do they just hold this new kind of weird independent spot in between seasons?
Yeah, so even in the before times, like I was kind of trending towards the direction of treating them almost solely as exhibitions. I agree with you. Like it did feel like it was more of a capstone to a year. And, for a team that maybe, dropped a couple games that shouldn't, say it went, 7-5 or something, getting that 8th win, was something like it felt like you could carry into the next year.
Yeah.
We've heard Rule say it, and I've been surprised. It's just kind of within the past year or two, I think, become the dominant view. Mike Elko talked about it at Texas A&M about, this is about 2025. And that just seems to be what it is now. It's almost like pre-spring practice with a spring game against an actual opponent, which is fine. These bowl times happen, or these bowl games are still great events for the players. I've watched a bunch of them, and I'm looking forward to today. But I think it's very much more forward thinking without kind of using the result. I think people are treating it more as, well, we're going to use a bunch of new guys and let's see what we got, because that'll help us when we kick things back up in February or March.
Yeah.
And if Mike Elko says it's about 2025, you saw how things ended for A&M last night. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's double-edged sword. Be careful with that.
Brandon Vogel with us from counterread.com. So what are you excited about today with this bowl game? Is it Dana? Is it the defense? Is it Dylan? I mean, circle something for me, Vogues, that you're watching.
I'm interested to see, particularly given the conditions, and we know how Boston College wants to play or does play. Like, there's not really much want to. They average over 40 rushing attempts per game. Like, they're just going to run the ball, whether they're moving it consistently that way or not, which they were kind of below average in terms of like the two big rushing numbers, but they stuck to it and it worked for them. I mean, like, look where they got in year one under Bill O'Brien. So Nebraska can run the football as well. I think this game has the potential to be kind of sloggy, but I think Nebraska's best chance to move the ball is to throw it a little bit. The Dylan Raiola's what I would be excited to see is some air raid principles in terms of like the short passing game, the like easy to execute stuff. Like Dylan Raiola over those 3 games with Holgorsen averaged over 70% completions per game. If he does that today, Nebraska will win, I think, unless he's like 7 for 10, maybe because of it's just, a mucky, wet game. Defensively, I mean, there's a lot to look at there. I'm probably most excited to see Vincent Shavers, got the black shirt for bowl prep, clearly a big part of Nebraska's future. And now he needs to step in there and play alongside Bullock on the inside there and replace what Micaiah Bayer gave Nebraska. So this feels like it could be a pretty big game for him. And let's see how well he plays. And even if it seems too big for him against a team that's going to run the ball as much as Boston College does, well, that helps a guy like that going forward too. This is what it takes to play, 60 snaps. It's different than playing 15.
To flip that question around, Brandon, just a little bit, what guys that have gone into the portal so far this offseason are you concerned might be felt, their loss might be felt this afternoon in the Bronx?
Yeah, the big one is, I mean, Bayer would be up there just with how Boston College plays. Also, I think Butler is the other one. He was obviously a good player, a bit more all around. Like with Williams and Emmanuel, those guys were kind of pass rush specialists. So I don't know that you'll feel their absence as much as you would against a team that was going to throw it, drop back a little more and throw it more traditionally. But in terms of Nebraska got to be able to hold up in that front seven. And it's missing some key guys there, foremost among them, Butler and Bayer.
Now, Boston College, of course, with the opt-outs, pretty surprising. I mean, if folks hadn't seen that yet, but their All-American defensive end, 16 and a half sacks. He is out. Also, their left tackle, I believe. And so you talk, what kind of impact just those two moves alone? And just by the way, for frame of reference, Boston College had 30 sacks this year. This dude had 16 and a half of those. All right. And that's now gone from your team, but impact on the game, both sides of the ball with those two kind of later opt-outs.
Yeah, Donovan Iziraku. It was I appreciated the gamesmanship of this all along, because all of the Boston College beat reporters were saying, like, nobody's seen this guy at practice. Like, it would be insane for him to play in this game. Yet when Boston College put out its Too Deep this week, there he was atop it. So at the point I was writing the preview for this game for over at Counter Read, I was like, I don't think this guy's playing, but I guess I have to include him. And then on Thursday, the only press availability of game week, they announced that, yeah, he indeed was not. So that's a big one, particularly with how I would see this game going for Nebraska offensively. I wrote in that preview, like, if Nebraska's not around 30 pass attempts, I don't think it's probably giving itself the best chance. These things always change, like once you get a quarter into the game, and the game state changes a little bit based on what happens. But going in, I would want Nebraska to throw the ball 30 plus times and not having to deal with the ACC Defensive Player of the Year coming off the edge. That's pretty big for that piece of it. And then on the other side for BC on the line, we'll see what the absence of a left tackle means. Normally, you would look at that, particularly in passing situations. BC is probably not going to throw it that much. And oh, by the way, instead of Butler coming off of that edge at some point, it's going to be a guy like Wos McGahee. So we'll see. That one might be a little bit more muted than it is for the Eagles defensively.
Okay. Two names that I think, how many combined touches in the passing game do they need for Nebraska? I think of Ramir Johnson when he was healthy and active, and I know that the play got called back against Purdue, but that isolation route out of the backfield, linebacker, running back, right? There was another Karlaftis in Purdue gear that had no way of keeping up with Ramir, and it was a touchdown that got called back in that glorious first half that's forgettable against Purdue. Ramir catches, Harburg touches, because he's gone full-blown tight end mode, and it sounds like those listening to Dana's conversation with Jessica on the network, and it sounds like that Dylan and Harburg are, as Dana says, are homies. So they're building a pretty good rapport with that tight end spot. So, I mean, Harburg's explosive, talented, a guy that's been there for this program, which is wonderful. But now at tight end, between him and Fedoni and Lendenmeyer, I mean, to me, those are safe passes in these conditions that you can wear out, make them stop you, running back or tight end.
Yeah, I mean, it won't work out this way, but on paper, it's intriguing to just run a bunch of option routes with Harburg. Be like, well, you're a quarterback, you know what the option should be and how Dylan should theoretically see this. Just go there, and you can have 6 catches on the day, and hey, who knows? Maybe take home Pinstripe Bowl MVP honors. Now, in terms of combined touches for Ramir and Harburg, like, I think anything over 5, you're probably considering that a pretty good day. You approach 7, so 4 catches for Harburg, maybe 3 for Ramir Johnson. Nebraska's probably winning if that's the case. But it's intriguing, Ramir Johnson. I know everybody kind of knows his story, but it's a good one to get into his career here. So I would think Nebraska will try to get him involved at least a couple of times. So, 3-catch day, that'd be pretty big for a guy who's put in all of the work, been, from everything we've ever been told, an exemplary teammate, just struggled to stay on the field in terms of health.
Brandon, I want to get your thoughts, I guess, on both sides, and not to go fully disaster here, but how does Nebraska win this game? How does Nebraska lose this game? Because as we move along in the week, you hear about opt-outs for Boston College. I think the advantage is clearly on Nebraska's side. The Vegas line shows you that it's all the way up to Nebraska's a 4-point favorite now. So how does Nebraska win this football game, but then to flip it around and maybe go worst case scenario, how does Nebraska lose this game?
Yeah, I think Nebraska wins this game if it is able to be accurate in the passing game. Boston College hasn't won a game in which it's allowed a completion percentage greater than 65%. Nebraska's over 65% on the year. So, and it was over 70% over the 3 games with Holgorsen in the fold. So, like I said, the weather, the time of year, all of that stuff kind of screams like classic Big Ten football game. Let's everybody run the football and be done in 3 hours. I don't think that's Nebraska's best way to win this. So if we see, a pretty clean, crisp passing game, I like the Huskers, by more than the 4 points, or that's what I last saw it at. They lose this game. This always becomes a little bit tricky, but if they throw more than 1 interception, they're probably going to lose. This BC team ranked in the top 15 in interceptions. I think 12 of their 16 were in their 8 wins. So only had 4 in the 4 losses. So it's kind of tied to the how Nebraska wins it, I guess, which may not be that dynamic and interesting, but I really think that's the case. Like, you see an early interception for Nebraska, it's probably a little bit dicey. And we've seen, I think Nebraska, I don't know, did they win once? I don't think they won when throwing multiple interceptions this year. And we saw the UCLA and USC games, both with 2 interceptions, and comeback attempts end on that second interception. So it's a simple number, but I think it's a pretty big one based on what these 2 teams have done.
Do you expect Nebraska to dip into the bag of tricks today, or play it kind of close to the vest with all this time to prepare? Do they go more gadgety or play it straight to get the W?
I would say probably a gadget or 2. And it might be kind of along the lines what Chris was, mentioned, Ramir and Emmett. Ja'Cory Barty is a really great wild card to have. So, I don't think we're going to see a flea flicker, but some sort of creative usage of some guys out of the backfield. And Harburg's, what the plan is with him kind of ups the ante for that as well. I don't know if I need to see the throwback, the double pass that we've seen a couple of times
for 7 yards
from Nebraska. One that provided a touchdown.
Can you hear the headsets now? Sat wants to call play. Sat wants to call play. All right, fellas, we're at the 20. Harburg,
Guys, give me just this one last play.
Wide left. Throw it to Heinrich. Heinrich, you throw it downfield. All right, on 2. Please, God, no. I don't need that forced in. You hit a big play, and then let's come back with the old Tecmo play.
Well, went for a touchdown against Minnesota. I think they're 1 for 2 on that play. So
Saterfield gonna hack into the coach to quarterback thing and be like, Dylan, you know what time it is?
I know this voice sounds different, but this is really data.
Catch this throwback off the bounce and then throw a touchdown. It's the easiest play in the book.
In the rain.
We're going to see Nebraska burn an unnecessary timeout in the second half because Dylan's going to hear the play call and go, what? Who's calling this? I thought this was burnt.
Dylan, it's on the sheet. Yeah. It's on the sheet. If you don't know how to do it, it's on you.
And then given some clock management history over the past 2 seasons, that timeout would come back to burn him at the end of the game.
It'll, yeah. You want to see our friends in the stream here at Revolt. You see that throwback wide receiver pass.
For 7 yards is the part that got me, right? I'm cool with that if you're going for like a 50-yard chunk play. 7 yards? Like, come on.
Yeah, it's not good when you have to check down to the safety valve on that play. You're like, well, we tried all the razzle dazzle and they just covered it, so we'll just take this underneath route and fight another down.
According to the sheet, it should have worked. I mean, we got 80 plays for
got them right where we want them.
My God,
I love it. Well, too bad it's been outlawed because this is prime Fumblerooski, weather with the slop and the rain. Give me the Fumblerooski for tribute. Vogues, what do you guys got going on at Counter Read? How can folks get signed up before the new year? What deals you got rocking, and what do you got going during the game?
Yeah, well, so we'll have our live game day chat going live here in a couple of, probably about an hour and a half or so. Fun time. It'll be good to do that one last time around a football game for 2024. On Monday, I'll kind of have my reactions to the game, what we saw, and probably some stuff about the season ahead. And then on Thursday, which will be my next newsletter. Aaron also does two newsletters a week. You can get subscribed to that at counterread.com. I'm interested to dig into the transfer portal for the Big Ten as a whole. Like, now that it's closed as of today, so there'll still be movement, but let's kind of recap what everybody not just brought in, but lost, because I think that's the other part of the equation that too often gets lost in just transfer class ratings. So been working on that, and it's been interesting in the Big Ten. There's some teams, Wisconsin probably foremost among them, that are making some big plays here, and Nebraska, I think, has done pretty well in terms of its additions. So dig into that a bit coming up this week.
All right. Brandon Vogel at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Follow him, counterread, counterread.com. Vogues, we'll talk again. Appreciate the insight. Are you doing some wings today on the grill or no?
No, it looks like the Bronx outside here today, so might have to just order something in.
Okay, that works out well. Enjoy, bud. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
There he is, Brandon Vogel with us. And the Iron Horse is ready to rock. What the hell did you trade Jay Buhner for?
Yeah.
Give me some reference there. Is this a Seattle?
Oh, whoa. You're a Seinfeld fan.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
The Yankees episode. Okay, forgive me. Yeah, you won the World Series in 6 games.
Do you think that the fact that Nebraska football in their history – hold on 1 second. Goddamn Roomba is – all right.
Yeah, we heard something when you joined. It sounded
yeah,
like
so I fired up the old Roomba to clean the house, and the Roomba happens to wants to make an appearance. Do you think that the fact that Nebraska football historically has played well in the Metrodome, that means they will play well at Yankee Stadium today? In a baseball stadium, they played well.
Pretty well in San Diego too, right? Back in the day.
Yeah. Outside of 14.
Well, it didn't go well in 98 either.
Okay, so maybe that's a bad comparison. That's okay. That is okay.
Wait a minute. Didn't it go well in 98? I was at that game.
No, they got beat by Arizona.
I don't know. I kind of felt like they won that game. Maybe I won that night.
Desert Storm. That was the Desert Storm defense.
Desert Swarm.
Desert Swarm defense. Yeah.
Remember when the middle game of the Holiday Bowl, Bo said Nebraska's back?
And
that one was great. That was the other Arizona game. They went against Arizona. Yeah.
That was Nick Foles getting abused. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now they just have to abuse a guy named Grayson James today.
Does he not scream potential hazer? I'm kidding, of course, but that's that kid. Grayson James,
the name,
the third.
he took over like game 10 or so. He's more of a thrower than Thomas Allen, the guy who's I believe that's his name.
Castellanos.
Thomas Castellanos. Sorry, Thomas.
Who transferred to Florida State. Yeah. Here's the portal world. He beat Florida State, and now he's at Florida State.
Yeah, transferred there. And they ran it a little more quarterback run centric with him. Didn't have a lot of success with it, but they did it. they throw a little bit more with this guy, and this guy's like 6'3", 220, but he does have a couple rushing touchdowns, so they do have a quarterback run game in their repertoire, but that is not kind of their bread and butter.
This version of it is the quarterback running from the pass rush versus the quarterback actually toting it.
I know.
How you feeling this morning, man, about the ball game?
Not feeling good about that broccoli.
Right, yeah. Did you just get hammered as well? Yeah, it's been a little rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything okay?
Hey, what happens amongst the four of us stays amongst the four of us.
Actually, I have a photo slideshow, but you missed some of it. I was gonna share it.
Okay. You know what? So first of all, Nebraska is playing in a bowl that you get when you're 6-6. It's going to be cold. It's going to be rainy. Historically, this bowl has the worst field conditions. So if I'm a first-round draft pick that's a pass rusher, and I'm probably not going to be able to get much leverage with my feet, and I'm worried about an injury, I'm probably going to opt out. I think there's a lot of factors here, but most importantly is Nebraska's playing football today. It's December 28th.
Yeah.
And, they kind of backed into a bowl game. They did. They were 5-1, and then they backed into a bowl game, but they're still playing today. So there's at least something there. And so we get to watch football. So we get to watch 3 hours of Nebraska playing, and the young Bulls get to prove today why they were recruited in Nebraska, because a lot of them are going to play, and they're going to be put in situations they haven't been put into yet. So I think it's a fascinating watch. I keep going back to what Elijah said about the stakes you put in if you win or you lose. I'm just going to watch the football today, and then we're going to get ready to see what the roster looks like in spring football, and we'll gear up next year, and you hope to God you're never playing in a 6-6 bowl game again.
Folks have been saying, well, with the revenue share coming in next year, that'll start to stabilize things a little bit and kind of calm down this very wild, wild West period. That's not true, though, right? Just because of the NIL factor, right? It's still going to be just as crazy because of that, right? Is revenue shares, is that going to really provide stability alone across the board, or does NIL have to get reined in before that happens?
Well, I think, there'll be a salary cap, so to speak. I also think, like the SEC could pay players. Now everybody can pay players. So the amount of great players is starting to spread out. Yeah. And you kind of see it in the bowl season. You saw it during the regular season. The fact that we got an Indiana and SMU and a Boise State and an Arizona State that are all playing in the playoff, and a couple of those teams have first-year head coaches. I actually think that the whole NIL will, at some point, ego has to be taken out of the equation, and it comes into return on investment. So if you are investing in players and they're not giving you a return, at some point you're going to move on. So I don't know. I think we are going to settle down, though, in the wild, wild West, because I think coaches and programs will learn to navigate the landscape. But there's always going to be that outlier that is just crazy and is spending money and doing things that, don't make sense. And either they're going to be successful or they're going to fall flat on their face. I think I've heard Dannon speak about Nebraska's approach, and I think it's going to be a wise approach. But at the end of the day, just like today, it comes down to Jimmy's and Joe's and execution on the field. It's that's what football is. You might have better players, but if we're able to execute and do our job, Jesus, I need to get a new Roomba. Went for 20 minutes. 20 minutes and just stopped in the middle of the floor and goes, "Please charge Roomba."
Demanding.
It's gonna. Here's the thing, and we kind of talked about this last night when all of us were together. I actually think the 105 is a benefit to Matt Rule because you have less people, your culture can be more tighter. You don't have guys that can go hide. Guys got to perform quicker, and you're going to be forced as a coach to make decisions on players that aren't living up to their billing earlier on. I don't know. It's the changing landscape of college football, but I will say one thing. It's still football. You know what? When we kick off at 10 a.m. this morning in the Fenway Park game, and then the Pinstripe Bowl at 11, it's still football. We love the football. Yeah. Look at last night.
The on-field product is still very good.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. It's just the other crap that's around it that, we got to argue about who should be in, who shouldn't be in. We like the football. The other stuff we're going to have to figure out. But it's still a great sport. It's still a great sport, and we'll watch today. And the game at 11 o'clock may be ugly as all get out, but we'll still watch it, and we'll do the thing that we tell ourselves not to do is like, don't overreact. But we have overreaction shows. That's what we do. That's what makes the sport such a great thing. And I'm glad that on December 28th, instead of sitting at home and staring out in the fog and wondering, oh my God, is the sun ever going to come out? You're going to get to watch your local team play.
Well, Gary, I'm going to ask, can you call your shot and say what are we going to be overreacting to here in roughly 5 hours?
That John Butler's defense isn't built to stop the run, and they just want to create havoc with all-out blitzes. See, I think today, I know you guys have talked about it with Brandon in the start of the show. This game, outside of Boston College, isn't as good as a punting team. This game feels like it's almost a repeat of the Iowa game. Like it's going to be a field position game. The conditions are not great. Boston College likes to run the football. Like if what lessons you learned against Iowa can you apply today? Because what's going to come to the forefront, and back to what Elijah was saying, we're gonna react either good or bad to special teams once again, because I think special teams are going to be a huge factor in today's game.
Do we expect a change at special teams coordinator?
I think professional courtesy will take hold after this game is over. E.J. Barthel and Ed Foley's contracts are up at the end of the month. But here's the situation, guys. If there is no change, then isn't that what Ed Foley has been doing, or whatever's happened with running backs? More on the special teams discussion. That's Matt Rule. Ed Foley basically is doing what Matt Rule wants him to do with a strategy.
Meaning stop casting the blame Ed Foley's way.
Yep, put it all on me. I mean, and that's kind of what year 3 is going to be, is put it all on me, even though I hired a head coach of the offense and some help on the defense. But here's the thing. The margin of error is so small for Nebraska that they have to scour the program to figure out how to win like inches. And where do you do it? In special teams.
Yeah.
But look at this, guys. So look at their philosophy in the portal. They went and got a punter. They went and got a long snapper. And essentially, you went and got your punt returner in Marshall the other day.
And speaking of which,
so are you setting up your special teams coach not to have as many issues when they walk in the door or they're back into their office after the first of the year?
I'm not trying to let Ed Foley off the hook necessarily here. Thank you for being in the comments, Ed, by the way.
Again,
my special teams are excelling.
Shouldn't he be on the field?
But, well, doesn't matter, obviously. I told you. Quit calling me out. See, okay, I'm not trying to call Ed Foley out. But how much of this year's special teams issues were specifically long snapping? I mean,
yeah,
right? Some of those missed field goals, there's probably at least 3 I can think of.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, Mark. Like they misjudged Marco Ortiz's eligibility expiring. That should have been a priority last offseason, is to go get a long snapper. I mean, it's just the little things. But here's another thing. So this is a Rule thing. I don't think this is necessarily Ed Foley. I think in the offseason, they got to look at their strategy of returning kicks. Yes. Like instead of fair catching not returning kicks, why not try and get some added yardage? You got to trust some guys once in a while. Yeah. And it's been such a weird year. Like Isaiah Garcia Castaneda can't get on the field as a wide receiver, but he can return punts for you. Now, essentially, he's been fair catching, but not at the beginning of the year. He wasn't, because we said, oh my God, this is fixed. But then towards the end of the year, who showed up returning punts, and he'll be back there today? Ja'Cory Barney. So it's been a weird, I think one thing we're finding out about Rule is loyal to a fault. And if you've been good to Rule throughout your career, he's going to be good for you. He's going to be good to you, and he's probably going to give you a little extra wiggle room. And it feels that way with a Saterfield and a Foley. That, yeah, I know these areas have to get fixed, but man, these guys have worked hard for me, and I got to give them one more chance, and I got to help them out. Well, special teams has worked against you. And you're in a conference where some of the best special teams coaches in the country are in your conference. And this is a run the ball, stop the run, do well on special teams conference. And if you can do all three, you're not playing at the Pinstripe Bowl on December 28th when it's 39 degrees in a baseball stadium and the angles are going to be bad.
No, that math has won and continues to win in the Big Ten. And you've got to be better at it. So interested here to get your thoughts, Sharpie, on just the Dana Dillon dynamic as we're now 4 games in. What's your ask today of your quarterback, and what can you predict? I mean, what's a good day? Because possibly here with these conditions, maybe loosen up the run with the throw. And I know that the run game is king. It's got to be dependable, but I think there's some things Nebraska can do, and I'm anxious to see him get Lloyd involved, get Harburg involved, find Ramir out of the backfield, get Emmett lathered up. I mean, I want to see what this offense looks after 2 weeks together beyond the 3 games moving forward.
Mark apparently had the broccoli that you and I had last night. I think what you'll see today, and they've had extra time now to sit down and share philosophy. I think you will see a really pared down playbook today, because I think what they've done is Dillon has sat down with Dana and he said, this is what I like and this is what I don't like. And Dana hasn't pushed back to say, no, I think this will work. I think this is a bowl game where, it's kind of a one-off. You can work on 25 when you get to 25. But I think they run a lot of stuff that Dillon is comfortable with today. I don't think they put him in a precarious position. I think things that Dillon does well today, they will run. But there's also the part of, man, you got to play some simple pitch and catch. And I thought that would be a strength of Dillon, and it was at the beginning. It wasn't so much at the end of the year. But I think a pared-down playbook today will suit Dillon really, really well. And remember, you got some guys that are going to be playing positions or scenarios that they haven't played as much, so you don't want to overwhelm them.
Yeah, that's fair.
Gary Sharp with us here, pregame edition, Hail Varsity Radio. And Sharpie, do you have more questions about Nebraska's offense and what it looks like today, or Nebraska's defense? We got a little bit of the Dana experience at the end of the season. He's had 15 practices to install some more, get his offense figured out. Flip it around. Butler was here all season long. You don't quite know what it's going to look like with him at the helm, though, especially with some of the talent they lost defensively. You're going to have some young guys that need to step up today. Do you have more questions offensively or defensively with what it looks like?
I think defensively, Elijah, just because of the personnel, you're missing some guys on the defensive line. I know Ty and Nash want to play like every snap today. I would think that there will be a heavy dose of them early, and then you'll see a Riley Van Poppel and a Keona Davis. They will try and get guys in there. I worry about some of the depth and then also some of the inexperience. I mean, we're excited for the future at linebacker because there's some hit stickers there that got great speed, and this will be a faster defense than they were last year. But those guys also are going to be stressed a little bit. And this is going to be a big boy football game. When we started, Schmidt, you were talking about Grayson James, and he's turned into a really good quarterback. Their offense has kind of taken that next step. This is a good BC team. Now, it benefits Nebraska to have 2 of their top players opt out. But offensively, Bill O'Brien's teams run the football, and they usually run it. They don't just line it up and say, hey, we're going to go to the A or the B gap. I mean, they will do some things against you that stress you. So I'm more worried about the defense and guys adjusting on the fly and, some of the communication, because it's not only do you have some young guys playing on defense, you have John Butler talking to some new assistant coaches as well. So what is the terminology going to be like? I imagine there'll be a bust or 2 on defense. It's just, can Nebraska hang in there for 60 minutes and play a physical game with a bunch of newbies that are out there? But again, I go back to this. This is a great opportunity. You showed today why you were recruited to Nebraska. Is it a preview of 25? I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. But this is why you were recruited, to be put in these kind of situations, and we'll see how you perform.
I am concerned, and this is my concern with Butler, and it could be baseless, but he has got such a big football brain, especially with his NFL background. What you're asking guys to do, all right? And if you've got the personnel, and the glaring example for me will always be the 09 defense, right? With Bo, Bo's 09 defense was asked to do a lot of NFL things because they had a lot of NFL guys, and they could get home with 4 guys rushing the passer, one named Sue. It was glorious, right? You know how good that defense was. Well, you fast forward to now, what are you asking your defense to do? And are you over asking from a check communication standpoint? And to me, that's unnecessary. Run a couple of coverages, do those well, stop the run, get after the quarterback. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. And I fear that you might dive into that pool from time to time and not help your defense with some of the asks. If they can do it, great, but you've had 2 weeks to go after it.
And I wonder, and that's a great point, Schmidt. I wonder if they, maybe they've, like we were just talking about the offense, which I think will be a pared down playbook today. Maybe on defense, it's pared down as well. You started with a bunch of knowledge. As you got into it, guys realized that, man, we do this well. This defense we play better in. Let's don't change the wheel.
Right.
Let's just go and do what we've done all year. And it's not like the guys playing today, they've been around the program. They've played. They've I'll give you an example. Caleb Benning, who is going to play today. He's been running with the 2s all year. They just have decided to redshirt him. So these guys have been going through it. I think Butler is smart enough that they're all of a sudden going to go, let's throw that defense out the window and let's run this. The thing I think with the defense, kind of a little bit where you're going here, Schmidt, is can they adjust during the game? That'll be the thing of guys that are getting stressed a little bit. What changes do they make during the course of the game? And can they relay those changes? Are they talking the same language? Yeah.
Make your in-game fixes so they can't keep killing you with the same thing over and over. What's your counter? So
and that'll be that'll be a question next year is what are the in-game adjustments? I mean, we kind of, when we get done with the season, we go back and we take a deep look like a defense. How many times did Nebraska adjust during the game? Or the games that Nebraska won, and by the way, I agree fully what Elijah said on Hail Varsity yesterday. This is a game that Nebraska should win. And outside of UCLA, they've been able to take care of business in games that they should win, Illinois aside as well. But I think, we're going to have to go, okay, how good was Nebraska adjusting during the course of the game? Or did these games that Nebraska played well defensively, they just had a really good game plan at the beginning? Like Rutgers or Iowa, they had a good game plan. It's not that they made a bunch of changes during the game. That'll be like, what will this new defense look like? Will John Butler be a guy that, man, he's got a good game plan Monday through Friday, but where he makes his money is Saturday once kickoff starts and he sees the first or 2, 3 series and he goes, okay, we got to adjust to this.
Yeah, there's something to the timing of things, right? Knowing what to call and when, right? Do you expect, because of the changes that Rule has made, think about it, and one of them was maybe not as voluntary as the other when Tony White decided to leave, but in place at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator now, you got dudes that are in their 50s that have been in the pros, that have been, played in college or coached in college quite a bit, real veteran, crafty guys that have had a lot of success already. Will we see that as soon as today? Do you think that just the impact of those 2 voices, offensively and defensively, will we see that today in terms of just simplification, guys maybe executing more, playbooks being pared down, ultimately leading to a team that can play faster on both sides of the ball?
Maybe not today.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, who did Matt Rule hire Phil Snow for? John Butler or himself?
Himself. Himself. That's a great topic. We should do a show about that. Oh my God, we're doing one
next week.
Perfect. No, but really though, that's for him, right? That is Phil Snow knows all of Rule's little nuances. He knows what Rule would want in XYZ situation. He can be that sort of translator so Rule can focus on clock management, maybe some personnel things that he's noticing of just like, hey, 7's not getting it done. We need to bring in 11, right? Or while the other guys can just kind of focus on operating the offense, the defense, special teams. He can look at the whole thing. I think that's why he was brought in, and also for the offseason, right? Also for the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, here I think Rule is going to make the transition to being a half CEO. I think he's always going to have an eye on the defense, but he's turned the offense completely over to Holgorsen.
Well, he had coaches he had to babysit before. Let's be honest.
I keep going back to this. You can say out loud that we're a developmental program, which Nebraska should have done 10 years ago. But if they're going to say they're a developmental program, you can't have developmental coaches. Okay,
can't be both phases.
Yeah. So now they've changed their staff where they have a little bit more experience, but I think the experience of either guys that have been head coaches, guys that have been coordinators that are now position coaches. I think Phil Snow can help Rule with the day-to-day. I mean, it's a beast, man. Nebraska football is a beast. And I think Rule in some cases was prepared for Nebraska, but I think as the game is changing and you realize what the beast of Nebraska is, you have to make adjustments yourself, and it can eat people up. I mean, Matt Rule's aged in a year.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit. Why is it different than? And I'm not doubting you. What I'm saying is, you hear that said, right? Bo Pelini had mentioned that. Tom had alluded to it. Scott Frost had alluded to it. Of just
Switzer talked about it. I mean,
but why is it different? Why is it different than OU, than Bama, than Florida, than Texas, than what's Michigan, Ohio State? What is so different?
I think they're similar.
That he has to deal with.
I think they're similar. I mean, look at the stress of a Ryan Day, Kellen DeBoer.
His beard has remained black though.
It's a Fortune 500 company, and in this state, it's the only Fortune 500 company, that hasn't left Omaha. It's still in the state of Nebraska. And I think you have to be prepared. Nobody can prepare you for what you're walking into, because you try and just be a football coach. But at Nebraska, it just seems like there's so many other people that want to be involved that you can't always just be a football coach. And Rule's probably, I'll give Rule credit. I think he's learning lessons about the mistakes they've made through the first 2 years, and he's rectifying those. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, we can throw out all kinds of scenarios on why it doesn't work and trying to manage being a Nebraska football coach. Next year, Nebraska football has to win. I mean, there is no sugarcoating that they must win, and relatively big, because they have to turn the faucet on. I mean, they are, after the first of the year, they're going to announce a major stadium project that's going to need a lot of money. Okay. And there are people that are hesitant to go all in on giving you money to improve their game day experience, because their game day experience is pretty good at home. So they've got to win big. I think I'll give credit to Rule. I think he has adjusted. I think UCLA is going to be the best thing that happened to him, that they got embarrassed. And it was the first time that he could feel that people were doubting that this was going to work. He's a pretty confident guy. And people are like, well, this is not going well. And look at what he's done post UCLA. Now, granted, they went 1-2 post UCLA on the field, but he has made changes off the field that they will not repeat those same mistakes.
Whenever you talk about the pressure of being at Nebraska and the pressure that there's going to be next year, I think it's really interesting to go back and look at last year's Miami team, simply because of the bowl game they ended up in and how last year went. You remember, they drop a game they absolutely shouldn't have lost to Georgia Tech. At the time, Miami was 4-0. They dropped that game. They finished the season 7-5. So hot start to the year. You kind of start having some self-doubt after the Georgia Tech game. You don't finish the year strong. You go play in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl at the end of the year. They took on Rutgers. But then what did they do? They felt the pressure. They paid big money for a transfer portal quarterback in Cam Ward. So they got that fixed. Brought in some pieces defensively and a couple of skill position guys offensively. And they make a run this season, almost ends in a college football playoff appearance. Can't do it at the end of the year, but I think by all accounts, when you look at last year compared to this year for Miami, it was a success. They took a step forward in the right direction. Can Nebraska do something similar this offseason? Is that going to be the task for 2025, is to have a Miami-type season where you make a run towards the playoff even if you don't get there, we all know that Miami took a pretty big step forward this year.
I think, geez, Elijah, wouldn't you be disappointed if that wasn't the case?
You feel like it's got to be, right? I mean, not to go.
I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
But be in contention, make November matter. We'll go win some big ball games at home and on the road. And you've got the funding, you've got the financial backing, you have the ability to go bring in portal talent. You've retained not everybody, but some key cogs. You've been able to move forward. They'll get some good experience. The young guys, those young bulls you're talking about, they'll have a bowl game under their belt in a postseason type setting. It's all got to spring forward.
Haven't you also eliminated excuses?
Pay off.
Like when today's game is over, I'm not saying older guys in this program are excuses, but you know what the adage is, that, you know what, now maybe it's rule year one. I'm not going to say that, but you know, you kind of get where I'm going is they have eliminated any excuses of the past.
Yeah.
You know, rule's been good and not throwing Frost under the bus or previous regimes, even though this month he has subtly done it a couple of times, if you listen closely. But now it's his program. Like these are his guys that he has dropped the culture on. And now it's go time. You know, this is kind of like the end of a run, it seems like. Like you hope this is the end of an 8-year walking through the Sahara. You finally got to the end of the desert. The drinking station is right in front of you. You get to do one more game, and then you're on to guys that are in your program that you only have 105 of them, and the culture is probably going to be tighter than it has been with 150 plus, and guys that have not learned how to win. I mean, it's also going to be coaches got to learn how to win. I mean, Rule's got to learn how to win big games.
Big time. You got to change that. And you have been pretty good at talent acquisition, we all think, right? 5-star quarterback, portal addition at wide receiver. You've got some really nice connections down in Florida, right? You've shifted a bit from Texas to Florida. You're going to go heavy into Florida. We all think that's a good idea. Now it comes down to the headsets, right? What's your game plan? What's your play call? And is that play call going to be something dudes can do?
I mean, I think I like their portal approach because it's been smart. It hasn't been willy-nilly, just grabbing guys here and there. There's like been a plan. Yeah, it's the thing I think we'll look forward to next year is going to be all about football. You know, it's not going to be about the BS or guys' past history or any of that stuff. Next year is all about the football. You're either good at football or you're not good at football. You either have the right guys that wear headsets or helmets or you don't. I mean, that's kind of plain or simple. And I think if I'm a competitor, that's what I want. Okay? I just want on Saturday when they turn on the scoreboard, that's how I'm judged. And that's where Nebraska will be judged even more so, you know, next year. You know, the bottom line is they're 11-13 in the last 2 years. That's unacceptable, especially when we're all sitting at home watching Kurt Signetti and Kenny Dillingham take their first-year teams and Fran Brown last night, and they're successful. And you wonder, geez, I mean, I get Nebraska's got some baggage, but you can't be better than 11-13 in your first 2 years. You're telling me that Syracuse didn't have baggage, or it lets you know that Jesus, the baggage inside of Nebraska football and the DNA and the PTSD is a lot greater than we would have ever imagined.
Do we think that does go away next year, though? Honestly, like I know some of the Frost players have moved on. There's going to be very few holdovers from that era. But does that go away? You think? Can Rule stamp that out?
I think it starts with him. I think I need to see a game next year where Nebraska wins a close game and they win it because of coaching.
Well, if that is today, if they win a close game today because of coaching, does that count?
Yes, because you know they've had a lot of moving parts, and they have a lot of guys that are not here that would have played today. Yeah, most definitely, it starts today. You know, and I think Rule needs that. You know, I mean, because I think we're all in agreement that Rule is not Frost, and that's why we're attracted to him, because he talks a good game. He's a guy that has a plan. And I think he cares. Like, you can tell that he cares. He kind of matches the fan. The fan has a deep passion for this football program. And it's nice to have a guy in the power chair that you can feel like has the same sense of urgency. It just, he has to win. He has to win games that matter. Games that matter, that the teams that you beat next year, they're playing this time of the year and they're playing in big bowl games. And we're about to find out. I think the thing, can Matt Rule win a game where he doesn't have elite talent? Have better talent than the team across the field from him?
Well, they were knocking on that door against Ohio State, right? There's 100 situations this year where there was 2.5 minutes left, and you can go drive the field and get a winning score. Maybe that finally happens today. Maybe, fellas, we get complimentary football to end 2024 and get you into 2025 with the showcase of, hey, you can do it. There's good clock management. Your game plan is good. You made the right adjustments in game. Your offense does what they need to do and they're supposed to do in crunch time to go win the game or get you the lead. And then the defense goes out there and gets a stop or gets the ball back for you for the offense to go win it. And then you're not a meth lab explosion on special teams. I mean, honestly, that'd be a great New Year's resolution, wouldn't it? You get all three phases.
How about
in the slop and in the rain?
Go ahead, Elijah.
Can I ask the room? Would you rather, if it was an ideal world, would you rather Nebraska wins a close game today, or they go kick the crap out of Boston College? For a vibes point of view, going into the offseason, which would you prefer?
Close game.
Kick the crap.
They need to go win a close game. Blowout to be a lot of fun. But from a what's better for them, right? The old dad saying this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you.
Well, I think here's the thing that ails, that Nebraska is still searching for. They're seizing an opportunity. You brought up the Ohio State game. Let's be honest. That was an opportunity for Nebraska because Ohio State wasn't really interested in playing that game. They were interested in playing the game the next week.
Yep.
And they fell into a trap, and Nebraska could not seize that opportunity. They couldn't seize the opportunity the last time they played in Iowa City. Even though Iowa delivered that game on a platter for them, Nebraska, when they had a chance to go from 10 to 13, could never seize that opportunity. Here's another opportunity today. And I think this will give you a little bit into the mindset of the players playing for their coach. This is a big deal to Matt Rule today. He's back in his hometown. Okay. He's talked about this. He is the most excited guy to be back in New York City for this bowl game. I'm not saying the players are not, but he is over the top. I'm back. I don't want to get embarrassed. Okay. I'm in Yankee Stadium. I'm back in my hometown. I've shown the guys all the sights. Go out there and play. And the guys say, man, we don't want to let coach down today. So let's go out and let's play above what we've been playing at. So they're seizing the opportunity. Can they seize the opportunity of Nebraska has a lot of motivation because the head coach doesn't want to get embarrassed in his hometown. And he has driven these guys pretty hard the last 2 weeks against a team where, they had 2 opt-outs. Boston College had a good year, and they got a chance to finish with, 8 wins, which would be a big deal.
15 years.
Yeah. But now you're starting to hear rumblings about Bill O'Brien back to the NFL, all of those kind of things. So maybe there's distractions at Boston College. And even with all of the opt-outs and new faces, Nebraska still has a fairly good core. Can you seize that opportunity? That's what we all kind of want, is those games that are there for Nebraska to seize, like the Illinois game. What that would have done for just the DNA, to win a game like that on a Friday night where, bam, you're unbeaten, you're going to Purdue, you won a nationally televised game on a Friday night, you weren't able to seize the opportunity. Nebraska comes up short. They're like the Charlie Brown. Okay. Like the ball gets pulled away. Can they keep the ball on the tee today and kick the field goal and win a game? And can they continue? Then once they've done it one time, can they do it again? That's where they need to get, start stacking performances. where it's not just a stop and start and
I love the emotion part of this that you're bringing up for Rule is as well as guys talk about their head man. It is important to go out there and go win one for him, right? That's big, but it's been an issue for not just this season, but this program in not seizing it. That's absolutely what today's all about.
Yeah, you know what? Doesn't Nebraska football need a Bryce Williams today?
Yeah.
Like late game alpha?
Amen. How about it?
Who's been that guy? Who's the last guy like that for Nebraska?
It's got to be your quarterback. I'm not sure if it is right now, but that guy has to be your quarterback moving forward.
Your last alpha was Amir.
Yeah.
That's sort of what it feels like. That's where my head went. Yep.
Like when you needed a play, he went and made a play. But Elijah's right. Can Dylan make the transition where he leads from the front, and when there's a play to be made, your quarterback makes the play?
Yeah. You're not just a periphery piece anymore. I mean, you're a 5-star dude.
You think Nebraska wants that?
I think you got to have it, don't you?
It's the give and the take of having a 5-star quarterback, like a
Right.
guy that's highly touted. If you bring him in, he's got to be your dude. As much as you might want to run the football, but if you got a 5-star quarterback, that's the selling point of your program to other offensive.
When push comes to shove, he's got to go make the plays and go be the game winner.
Yeah.
If the game plan is to hand off 50 times to win it, he's got to be cool with that as well. But when the old bat signal goes up and it's John Elway time, go do it.
Well, but you didn't bring Dylan Raiola to Nebraska to be McCarthy from Michigan. Like JJ McCarthy at Michigan, yeah, he did a great job handing the football off to that talented stable of backs, touched upon the offensive line. That's not why you brought Dylan Raiola to Nebraska, though. Dylan Raiola was brought to Nebraska to be a program changer.
Now
Well,
he is away from his OC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's tough. It doesn't. Do you guys? So quickly here on Dylan, is it tough to judge Dylan this season? Because he was, in my book, he was just fine. Nebraska needed more than fine, but it's tough to judge him because he's attached to Saterfield for 9 games of the season.
Yep, and it was an uncoordinated offense. Quite simply, it just was. They looked so messy. They did not play with conviction. They didn't play with rhythm.
They ruined him. They ruined him after the first 4 games of the year. They didn't do him any damn favors.
It was just it's a discombobulated offense that he was running. You remember the rotations at running back. You remember the delay issues out of a timeout.
Personnel at wideout. Let's get everybody involved. Yeah,
it didn't feel like things were building on top of each other. It didn't appear like there was a coherent strategy. That the players didn't play fast. It was a mess, absolute mess offensively, and I don't think you can pin that on Dylan. He had sort of early on in the season, there's the excitement, there's the level of opponent. Things are probably a little simpler. You're playing on adrenaline. It's not too complicated. But then as the slog hit, and as you started to face, he didn't seem like he got help from his offensive coordinator in terms of what he wanted to do.
Well,
what he should do, what he does well.
He's been super successful. All right, let's just start there. Wherever he's been a key cog in winning teams, right? And then he comes here, and the first handful of games go well. You whack Colorado, you face some adversity, probably for the first time at a really large level, at a place you're supposed to help come back and resurrect. You doubt yourself a little bit, theoretically. As a young player. And then, oh, by the way, the guy that's supposed to help you through it, not your quarterback coach, but your coordinator, has been a mess himself when it comes to his play calling and his job. So it's a double whammy. You're a young guy struggling for the first time, and you had a coordinator that didn't help you out either because you don't know what you're good at. So,
but how much? So we're all in agreement here that the Marcus Saterfield experiment was just an abomination.
Let's throw McGuire in there too, by the way, because that's who he's throwing to. He's throwing to a position group that was coached by one of their peers. It's
half and half. I think what they delivered to the wide receiver room the last 2 years, and a young coach was a recipe for disaster.
Let's just say what it is. It's a disservice.
Let's also say what it is. Matt Rule did a very poor job in hiring the offensive staff.
Yeah.
He hit home runs on the defensive staff. He's a defensive guy. Offensively, he gets a mulligan because his first go around on that offensive staff, and remember, he had a tight end coach that didn't even make it to game number 1, was a mess, an absolute mess. But he gets a mulligan because now he turned it over to somebody that hires a wide receiver coach, and you're like, whoa, okay, man, what does that guy do to a Jalen Lloyd who has been AWOL this season? Things like that. But back to Dylan a little bit. How much of it, though, I mean, I know Saterfield is involved, is just Dylan, okay? I don't think Dylan learned how to, and a guy that's been highly successful his entire life, and it really has never had a bout of adversity. I don't think he handled adversity very well. I don't think he handled a missed throw against Illinois, and he let that affect him for a while. I don't think he did a good job of taking failure and turning it into a positive. And he's just kind of been game to game, where there hasn't things that have, like the Iowa game. I mean, let's be honest here. Let's take the gloves off. The Iowa game, he hurt Nebraska. There were throws that were made that guys were schemed to be open that he didn't make. You got to make those. You're not a true freshman by the time you make it to game number 12. I don't think he did a good job of learning from his mistakes and correcting them the next time they come up. That'll be the challenge in the offseason, is to sit down and if you see what I see and how do we correct that, because he is the future of Nebraska football. You basically are building your roster with a 2-year window with Dylan Raiola as your quarterback. So they need to get him. They need to say, you know what, everybody fails, but the people that are really, even Patrick Mahomes fails. But what he did with his failures, he doesn't go back. He always moves forward. And so that's why, like, today is kind of curious. Like, this is the most, this is the most time that Dana has had with Dylan when it's not a game week, where they've just been able to focus on ball and practice, not preparing for a game, but they have done, they've kind of split this half and half. They prepared for Boston College, but they've also worked on themselves. So maybe what I'm saying, I don't know, maybe guys, we see that today.
Whenever you talk about this year, Dylan Raiola's response to adversity, responding in the right way, doesn't part of that also fall upon the coaching staff? Because I come back to the old, it's not that old, it's a couple months old now at this point. Kevin O'Connell was asked about how they're able to take a guy like Sam Darnold and turn him into something. And essentially his answer was that he believes organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail their organizations.
Great.
Which is a great quote from Kevin, a guy that has seemingly been a quarterback whisperer in the NFL for a couple of years now. Doesn't that also come down, like, whenever you have a young quarterback that faces adversity, isn't part of the response on the coaching staff to prepare a guy to respond in the right way?
Yeah, that's absolutely my feeling.
Well, how about the strategic?
You better be the adult to fix it.
Well, how about Rule going on record as saying we haven't taken anything out of the offense? We got the whole offense. We're putting the entire offense in with Dylan, because he has the capacity, right? Mentally, he's very high level when it comes to understanding of football and all that. But it's the first time he's been on the field going through it, right? It's one thing to understand all this stuff, be able to diagnose it in the film room. It's another when you're standing on the field and a 280-pounder is coming at you faster than you've ever felt, right? And being able to perform at that level. Rule said that early on. He's like, we're not taking out anything for this offense. Is that the right thing to do to a true freshman quarterback?
I don't know. I remember Danny. So when Danny Kaelin,
you say it.
Yeah. Hey, when Danny Kaelin showed up last winter and they gave him Saterfield's playbook, he was blown away by how large it was. Not that Danny couldn't handle it. I mean, he came from a pretty sophisticated offense at Bellevue West, but it still was at Bellevue West. There's a lot of options out of not as many plays. And I remember his comment was, he was like, I can't believe this. I mean, how are you supposed to know all of this? And what did we see during the season? Oh my God, they're just trying to do way too much.
Yeah.
They've got too much. It's instead of the Raising Cane's menu, Saterfield wanted the Cheesecake Factory menu. where you try and be the smartest guy in the room. That's what I appreciate about Dana and Dana's been around the block enough times. Man, you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. You know what makes you the smartest guy in the room? Points.
Being right.
I mean, there's so many offensive coordinators that overcomplicate things. Do what your players do well and continue to rep them. Major in the what is it? What is it? Major in the mind. I don't know what. Focus on the stuff that you do well instead of we got to do all of this stuff. Like if I want Diet Coke, serve me Diet Coke. Don't try and push Pepsi on me.
Do you want a Coke? No, we have Diet Pepsi. Is that okay? Hell no, it's not okay.
Yeah, those are some of the worst words you'll ever hear at a restaurant.
No. You have two different types of play callers too. This is what you've moved to now. And I remember talking to our buddy Searles about this, where you have offensive coordinators that have their list of things they put together for the week. And you go down and you check your boxes. All right, here's all the things that I think you can do to this defense, and let's just keep going down the line. Did that worked? Let's go back to it. Oh, whoops, the defense saw it worked, and then they've adjusted to stop it so it doesn't work a second time. Versus the play caller that here's 4 or 5 things on the menu. Let's start off with a salad or a salad bar. Damn, that salad bar was good. Let's go back to the salad bar before we order the main entree. And Dana's the guy that, all right, here's the game plan. This is what I think will work. It is working. They still haven't stopped it. Let's keep running it until they do stop it, and then we'll go on to choice B. Yeah. So there's your 2 styles, and Nebraska's on to a guy right now in Dana that's going to put a plan together. If it works, they're going to stick with it, and then they'll have another wrinkle for you once you make your adjustment. I mean, the cat and mouse part. I'm confident for Nebraska moving forward that at least on offense, the cat and mouse part is going to be in their favor now. On top of the demand, you're going to do X, Y, and Z right, or you're not going to play. Don't care how many stars you got next to your name. So that's a good feeling. I hope it's on display today if you're a Nebraska fan.
I mean, simple is sometimes better. I remember having a conversation with Danny Langsdorf. I mean, there's a name that hasn't been brought up in a while. And his philosophy, he said one thing. We were sitting down in his office one day, Damon and myself, because Damon was getting ready for a game. Mm-hmm. And Langsdorf said, I call plays where who needs a touch? And I thought about that. I thought, okay, now what does that mean? You have all these offensive weapons. Who needs a touch? You know what? Number 8 in the backfield hasn't carried the ball in 5 plays. We got to get him a carry. Instead of getting in a rhythm where things are going well and you just continue to hammer that. I think one change, and this will be, I know in the portal world, Nebraska hasn't won battles to get offensive linemen. I'm telling you, I'm pretty convinced that Nebraska feels good about their offensive line and their running back room, even though they lost Dowdell, even though Ben Scott's going out of the program, Mazuka's going out of the program after today. They like what they have. So they haven't gone over the top in pursuing. Yeah, would they like to add a couple of offensive linemen? Yes. And they still got time to do that. But one thing that I think has changed with Dana is the offensive line has a whole different vibe to it. Why? Because the guy that's calling plays trusts them, and that he's going to call run plays. And that's what they want. They want a run block. Okay. They're better at pass pro. And we go, God, they're crappy at run blocking. Well, how many times do they get to run block? And the offensive line in the last 3 games, I thought has played better as a unit because they have more of a faith in the OC because the OC has faith in them and he trusts them.
They're used. They're getting used. Yeah. They're being asked to do their job, and they're allowed to go do what they want to do. I mean, it's a novel thought, isn't it?
Well, and it's again, I think every time that Dana Holgorsen opens his mouth or calls a play, it's an indictment on Marcus Saterfield. Yeah. It just shows you how woeful it was for 2 years that guys that, man, I bet there's going to be guys next year that show up and play well, and we're going to be like, where has that guy been? Well, now they're in an offense that features their strength, or gives them a chance.
Quick question.
It's just amazing.
Do you? But that's so I want to go back to Dana's presser, pre-bowl presser. All right. And he was asked by BC, Brian Christopherson, about the offensive line. Are we going to see some young guys? And Dana goes, dude, I mean, it was a hem and a haw, and it was, well, we got to go get some guys. I mean, it was bus being driven over O-line, hit reverse, back over them. Is that button pushing by Dana?
I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because that's exactly how I interpreted that. And O-line rooms can usually take that. Right? They're a little more
better. We're bringing some fellas in, right?
They're like, oh yeah, we got to work, and we're a unit, right? Like that's how offensive linemen are the Baham.
We got to go get some guys. I mean,
they're the all shucks crew. Yeah,
it wasn't quite. You're big kids. Why aren't you blocking? It wasn't that bad.
Well,
He has something like that almost every press conference.
It's true. I was going to say, though, we go back to we got a young guy that we think is going to be a factor on Saturday. Total motivation play for the old guys on the offense. Like, hey,
and the young guys would be like, is he talking about me?
Yeah.
Right?
Motivation play. Look at the offensive line. Like, I give the offensive line a B this year. That's my grade. They weren't outstanding. They weren't the reason you were losing football games.
They had a good finish to the year to get that B.
That's fair.
On a traditional grading scale, C+, on a 10-point scale, they're B-. I hear you.
They
like an 82.
They weren't the reason why the offense had its issues this year. It wasn't the offense line. That's the first time you can say that about Nebraska in 6 years, probably.
No, the pass pro was good enough.
The offensive tackles feel like they've already won today. I'll just say that.
Yeah. No, but he does, like Holgorsen does that every press conference. So it was, God, our wide receivers got these big guys and we can't block. That's embarrassing. And what happens next game? They block well.
He's telling the running back coach, there's holes there. They got to hit it harder.
And they did, right? Uh-huh. And they did. So,
well, I think what the difference is
a motivational ploy of just saying offensive line, be like, oh, we got to get some guys in here because these guys are.
But here's the difference. Here's the difference with Holgorsen. What he has said to us publicly, he's already said to guys.
Yeah.
Instead of, I'm going to talk through the media. I think Holgorsen talks to the players and then he relays it in the media. So then, you can see on Saturday, okay, his point got across. What we don't know is that he's been hammering that for 2 days before he steps in front of a microphone. At the end of the day, and I know this is a point that just got brought up in the stream. We talked about the different vibe of the offense. They had one game where they put up a lot of points against a bad Wisconsin team. I mean, that's going to be the transition of got to put up points, ma'am, against defenses that are going to challenge you. USC, it wasn't the offense. Iowa, it wasn't the offense. That's why today, I think this is a fairly good Boston College defense. They're not over the top, but you gotta be able to put up points. I don't know. The offensive line will be interesting in the offseason because they have some decisions on some guys that could come back. Like, do we do and he's going to try and come back. I mean, do we do the Prohaska Corcoran thing again? I mean, have you found your starting left tackle? Is Sam Sledge your starting center? Are we going to be having a discussion next year about, man, Ben Scott was quiet for 2 years, but God, he was pretty damn reliable. It'll be an important offseason for our offensive line because they made a commitment 2 years ago to recruit young guys because that room was kind of it was kind of lopsided in terms of older and younger guys. So they're going to have a big offseason with the Sam Sledges of the world, the Brickses of the world, guys that are on the fringe that now it's time to play. Like, is Lutovsky who he is, or can he make a jump? So I don't want to overlook the offensive line because probably next year, guys, Nebraska will only go as far. Holgorsen could be a magician. They will only go as far as that offensive line's development.
How important was it for him to say that they're not installing a 4-wide air raid?
I think it was important from the standpoint of the game of football has changed where he knows that you have to run the ball. I mean, they're still going to run. I think they'll still run the ball more than they'll throw the ball. It just probably won't be the traditional, between the A and the B gap running game.
He gets the importance. He gets the importance.
I mean, at the end of the day, you got to score points. However you score points.
Against one little low key statistic that happened with Holgorsen is the amount of snaps that they took. Right, game 1, 83 plays against UTEP. Second highest was Indiana. You had 75, but then you were mainly in the 60s, just in terms of how many snaps you're getting off offensively. 74 and 76, Wisconsin and Iowa. Right. What do you think that speaks to in terms of Holgorsen's influence? The fact that they had that many snaps.
I think it's because
defense got him the ball back a lot.
It did. That's a factor, but also a factor is Holgorsen was quicker with the play call. I think
there you go.
Holgorsen thinks ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like he already
has an indictment, Gary.
Well, again, every time Holgorsen does something, it's an indictment on Saterfield. That's on him. That's not on us. We already know that. He's already thinking like a play ahead. Like Osborne was always great. Like T.O. would tell the story, like Solich would tell the story of T.O. was always like, okay, this is the play call on first down. I know that at minimum it's going to get us 6 yards. So I got to have my 2nd and 4 play call ready. And they haven't even run first down yet. And he's already thinking about the drive. Okay, this is if we get to this point, this is what we're calling on 3rd down. And so he already had all these scenarios in his head, and they hadn't even run the first play of the series yet. Solich tells these great stories about how Tom was already ahead of a couple of plays ahead of what Nebraska was running. I think with Holgorsen, look at how soon Nebraska gets the play call in. Like they shut the communication off 15 snaps or 15 seconds. They did that at the beginning of the year, and then it really slowed. I think Holgorsen gets the play call in so that they can adjust pre-snap. I think that also helps with the amount of plays that they're running.
Mm-hmm. I hope it's Osborne-esque.
I mean, he's one of one, though.
Yeah.
That's
pretty evident. Coach Osborne watched the game entirely different than any of us ever could imagine.
So I took a coach in a football class. Folks that have watched this show.
How did that go for you?
I got a C.
You got a C?
Mm-hmm.
Was it an attendance thing, or was it just that difficult? You're a smart guy.
It was one of the toughest classes I ever took in college, and I'm not joking. Osborne taught it, and it was one of those ones like you better call the enroll system like the second it opens, or you're not getting in, right? And so I got in, and so I got to take
good old Rick Alloway. Welcome to the university enroll system.
Please press 1 on your
press 1, Mark Kraynak.
No, but listening to that or attending that class, Osborne broke down in one of the lessons. He broke down the 97 Orange Bowl against Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And he talked about how he was thinking about essentially training, and I'm paraphrasing, he didn't put it in these terms, but training the Tennessee's nose guard, that when Nebraska lined up in the double wing, right? Or ace, I guess you would call it, right? With receiver / backs set a little bit behind the tackle or tight end, right?
2 wing backs. Yeah.
When they came out in that formation, they always ran sort of like a certain action and kind of trained the nose guard to expect to be blocked X way, right? Chevin Wiggins' touchdown, which came in the second half, they just left him unblocked entirely. Mm-hmm. And Frost was able to just run right by the guy. And Osborne talked about how that was deliberate. Like, we just wanted this guy to know. And then when it came time to run, I think it was a speed option, probably with a little orbit motion behind with Wiggins coming. He slow-moed it. The nose guard gets penetration, is expecting a block. Frost just literally runs right by him. Like, they almost grazed shoulders. But the guy was not, he was trained to not be ready for that. So you were able to have an extra blocker. You didn't even block him. So you have an extra blocker. Wiggins scores easily. It's just another, and it's like Osborne probably had like 10 of those in every game, little games within a game where he's like, okay, we're going to do this, and later that'll lead to that. Okay, we're also going to do this, and later it'll lead to that. You don't get the sense that Saterfield was doing that.
No, the setup.
No,
that was such a long-winded way to get to that point.
Mark.
The setup that you just laid out is beautiful. The setup is absolutely fantastic.
No. Do not give him praise. He put T.O. and Saterfield in the same sentence.
No, I'm talking about T.O.'s praise here about setting up a poor little nose guard. For a quarter and a half.
I just love how
blocking scheme.
Mark told that entire story. Mark told that entire story at the end to be like, and I don't think Saturday's doing that. Yeah, no bleep, Sherlock.
Hey,
I don't think.
Hey, but I'm glad you brought that up, and that game in particular, because I mean today Nebraska plays for the first time in 8 years in a bowl game. Just wrap your arms around that. Yeah. This was like, death taxes in Nebraska's playing January 1 or whenever, and we take it for granted. I know one thing we'll never take for granted is that what the kind of coach Tom Osborne was, but the scenario you laid out with his offense, if you think about it, he was so far ahead of his time in terms of offensive philosophy. I mean, there's another thing that I love. I think one of the best things Husker Vision ever did. Remember when they would do at the end of the year, they would do a VHS tape, like the highlights of the year.
Of perfection.
Yeah. Middle of January, you were at the grocery store or wherever, you were buying that. The one of T.O.'s last game, they did this, and I wish they would do this again, is they had T.O. and Solich and their communication mic'd up. Yeah. So you could hear them talking while you were watching the play. And it was just, again, it was fascinating. He just, man, never take Coach Osborne for granted in terms of just his mind, his football mind. I mean, he was so far ahead of the game, and he saw the game in such different ways. Now, he had dudes. There is no doubt. I'd love to have dudes as well. But you match the dudes that he had with his thinking and his adjustment, from the late 80s into the 90s. Hey, bless him, because we just spent 8 years not going to a bowl game. And that was like what we did. We went and bought, 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, we went and bought bowl t-shirts. We went to bowl games. We talked about bowl games. We went to the bowl site 10 days before the game, and we watched teams practice, and we talked to T.O. I mean, all of those things that come back today when you're like, man, 2016, a long friggin' time ago.
Man, you brought up some great memories about the mic'd up Tennessee game where T.O.'s there talking. He's kind of hunched over. He's got his hands on his knees in that typical sideline pose. And like the exclamation point was Amon Green going 50 yards or whatever. And you just hear Tom saying, "Go baby, go baby, go baby," as Amon's sprinting down the sideline. I wish I got it. Next time we talk to Uncle Charlie, Coach McBride, I'm going to ask him why they didn't mic him up. Can you imagine that?
I got a pretty good idea.
There was not a lot of bleeps.
Words you can't say. Yeah, right.
There were not a lot of bleeps in T.O.'s discussion with Frank.
No,
but it was fascinating. And maybe some people remember what I'm talking about is because Tom would say, "Hey, Frank, what do you think here?" And then Frank would give like the down and distance, and T.O. would immediately have a play.
Eye in the sky. Absolutely.
Like they needed just confirmation. They were on the same page. Boom, they were on to the next play. But he was always like the thing that I wish Rule would take away on special teams is, you remember T.O. had this stat about, if we return the kickoff to the 26-yard line, we have a X% chance of scoring compared to if we only get it back to the 20. So he had all that stuff down. I wish Rule would readjust his philosophy on returning kicks, instead of fair catching, whether it be kickoff return or punt return. It just, I don't know. I mean, I don't want this to turn into a, walk down memory lane of T.O., but no. it makes you appreciate what we had around here with one of the elite play callers matched with one of the greatest running back coaches that college football has ever known. And then on the other side of the ball, you had a defensive coordinator who demanded and got the best out of every player that played for him. I mean, we were spoiled. Let's just be honest. We were spoiled.
Yeah, well, and we got into this discussion, though, talking about maybe the difference under Dana Holgorsen. Yeah. And, not saying you might
have hired the Charlie McBride for the offense, a guy who calls plays where he's DGAF.
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And then it comes that way with players. Either you're going to do what you're told and you're going to play, or you're not. And that's not my, I'm not no skin off my back. I'm moving on to the next guy. That's what Charlie was.
Doesn't Holgerson give you the vibes of somebody, and we'll see how it plays out, right? We're already crowning the guy, but his past speaks for
an
itself.
indictment on the previous OC.
But doesn't he strike you as a guy that could call a game without a headset, right? He seems to be very engaged with what he's seeing on the field and responding accordingly, right? Seeing if a guy's got a hot hand, seeing if a guy's got maybe an extra spring in his step, and is kind of there mentally that day, because that's a part of it too, right? You might have the best play call, but you might be like, tight end, he didn't have it in warm-ups today. He's just, maybe a little lethargic today. Maybe he's nursing a little something. It feels like he's very tuned in to his team. Whereas Saterfield, I think, was just kind of looking at him as X's and O's.
Well, and I think there's some play callers that they watch a game like this.
Yeah.
Maybe the better play callers have the play sheet here, but are watching the game above the play sheet.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And think about that in terms of running back rotation and things like that, right? Where he could overrule that, like certain personnel packages. It's like, okay, we got to bring Dowdell in now. Oh, now we got to bring in Ramir. Oh, now we got to bring in Emmett. Oh, now we got to bring him because that's what the sheet says. It could be Dana be like, hell no, keep Emmett in.
Do you guys get the sense that the 3 games that we saw is that Holgerson is in charge of player rotation?
I think so. Yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, he's gonna say and do what he thinks is gonna get yards and score points.
Got to score points, man. They got to. We can praise Dana all we want, but at the end of the day, they got to score points.
And do you think, Gary, with that in mind, as we look at today, you got to score points, obviously, but with the gross weather that we have in store, my buddy Trey just made his way into the stadium, posted up a Snapchat story of the field. It looks gross. The conditions look absolutely disgusting. They look worse than they did like 30 minutes ago. Field's going to be gross today. With that in mind, how do you evaluate success for Nebraska's offense today? And I guess even the defense as well. How do you evaluate it today in particular?
Can you run the ball? Can you stop the run?
Yeah. What about the deep ball? The deep ball was noticeably and surprisingly absent this year for Nebraska. That I would say coming in, that was one of Raiola's strengths, right? Like a deep ball thrower, a guy that literally is on tape throwing a 70-yarder, like ball in the air, 70 yards in stride to a player who scores a touchdown in high school. Like that does not happen. Deep ball was not there. Do you think we might see the return of that? Can we get Lloyd on a seam route?
Is the shoulder healthy enough to do that? First of all, second of all, is it more Lloyd 30 yards after the catch, or are we talking most of it in the air and then you go get you go high pointed?
I think that was a big to me. That was a big draw of Dylan. Is he's sort of a complete quarterback. He can throw deep, he can throw short, he can throw medium. He can make all the throws, but the deep throw this year, he was just a little bit off.
The shots they did take, he didn't hit most of them after week 2.
Well, I think he missed on a deep shot in week 4. Mm-hmm. Yeah, week 4 on a Friday night, and after that, it seemed like it was helter skelter, because then he got in love with throwing a deep ball that's underthrown that's going to draw a DPI. I mean, who knows what went through his head as the season evolved, but I think this is the evolution of a young quarterback. Is, like Mark, you like hard, okay? Mark, you like to be hard, okay?
What? What's happening?
But some people like the easier. Okay.
Difficult. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. It's before 10. Dylan still wanted. I think Dylan in his head was a quarterback that he used to be, instead of the quarterback that he was at the current time, and always looking for the hard play when the easier completion was there. And so I mean, I don't know. Dylan probably thinks way too much.
It's fair.
And I know it's a difficult position. There's a lot of stuff that goes through your head, but you could see like just the processing, like instead of the options that were there, he wanted to make sure he got to all of his checkdowns and all of his reads before he got rid of the ball. See it, rip it.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe that this is a young quarterback and the evolution of going against defenses that know your weaknesses and they have personnel that can exploit your weaknesses. That's where he has to adjust. He's got to make a jump in year number 2, you know?
Coach him up, right?
Yeah, and do you have the right coach for him? And Glenn Thomas is going to remain on the staff, but is Dana Holgorsen going to be the quarterback guru?
That's his history.
If you saw the Iowa game and then people that were there that were sitting close to the Nebraska bench, Holgorsen and Raiola, that was like Raiola would come off the field this year and no one would really talk to him. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He kind of go off on his own.
Yeah. Holgorsen is more of your first person you're seeing me when you come off the field is me.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to bombard you, but let's talk about a couple of things, then go get a breather and we'll get right back out there. So I think, Holgorsen got in the face of Dillon during the Iowa game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he didn't like some things that he did, and he wasn't afraid to show it. And that might be actually the best thing that could happen to Dillon.
Yep.
Coach him hard, for sure.
Well, and guys, and here's the thing. You know the Schmitty, Elijah and Mark, there are guys that want to be coached hard. Okay? They do. Then coach them hard. Okay? Because they respond to that. Don't pussyfoot with guys and pick favorites. All right? If they want to be coached hard, coach them hard. And you're going to see the result. And I think just the brief little snippets and interviews we've heard with DeKale Shorts, there are guys in that wide receiver room that want to be coached hard. Okay? Jalen Lloyd wants to be coached hard because he always has been his entire career, and that drives him. I don't think he was coached hard this past year.
No.
And he got lost in the shuffle. There's a guy that, I'd love to see him play today. You know, the guy doesn't say a word. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to talk to Jalen. If Jalen speaks more than 20 words, you're like, oh my gosh, he's just a very quiet, young, humble kid who just likes to play football and run track. But man, he'd like to play wide receiver. But he wants to be coached hard because he's always been coached hard. And the people that have coached him hard have seen the result. You know? I mean, look at guys like, I don't know, I don't want to jump into this discussion, but a guy like Malachi Coleman. What if Nebraska coached him harder? Would he have stayed around? Would he have left earlier? Would he have been a different result?
You'd have found out.
It kind of leads down the line, guys, of the whole discussion that popped up late in the year about playing favorites in a position group room. Like here's an example. Thomas Fidone is a fascinating watch today. Is this Thomas Fidone's last game at Nebraska? Will he dip his toe into the NFL draft waters? You know, because he's one guy that we all went, wow, I'm surprised he's playing today. His aunt is probably surprised he's playing today. But here's something about him. They, post-Wisconsin, they coached him hard, and it wasn't the tight end coach, another indictment. It was the OC that challenged him and said, what are we doing? Look who got a lot of important snaps and routes in the Iowa game.
Yeah. And not a ton of little screen passes to him. Get the guy going up.
Got him vertical for the love of God.
Don't ask him to turn on a tight read.
It's like turning a battleship in a hallway.
Thank you.
Here's what I'm thinking moving forward, right? And go play well, go win the ball game today if you're a Nebraska fan. But you can talk a great game about accountability, right? But you really got to enforce it. And I think you have more of an enforcer in Dana, at least on that side of the football. As far as favorites go, it happens, but you better be right about who your favorite is, okay? And it doesn't look like there's always been accuracy on who they stuck with or run with versus some other options. And that you can't be wrong on who your trying to get the football to over somebody else. Like there's no reason a guy like Borkacher shouldn't have had more touches this season. There's no reason a guy like Lloyd should have been buried on the bench and, it's 2-minute drill. Let's get Lloyd and ask him to put his Superman cape on via USC and make one of the better catches this season. Now you go to me, right? You can't demand your standout from Lincoln get better at X, Y, and Z, blocking, knowing the playbook, whatever kept Malachi off the field. Injury, part of it too. But then, all right, let's break in case of emergency against Northwestern. I mean, you can't keep moving the standards of what it takes to get on the field. And I don't think you're going to be doing that moving forward with Holgorsen, and that's big. And you got to draw your line in the sand. And even in this portal transfer, kids have always been told how great they are. In some instances, doesn't matter. You just you stand firm, and if you tick off some parent or some handler or the kid himself, so be it.
Just make it about performance, man. Just make it about performance.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
And don't let NIL get in the way.
No, exactly.
I mean, I think this is around college football where there were some guys that you're paying a lot of money for who aren't performing, that have the young guns behind them that are outperforming them during the week, that aren't playing on Saturday. And your decision is, well, that guy's costing us a lot of money. We got to make sure we get all the money we can, because that guy up in the 80th row is going, I paid for that wide receiver. He better play.
Listen, too. You better pay attention to perform. What do you think it did in the wide receiver room when they would look at the film and point out how, there's Lloyd and Banks not blocking again? And
I think Lloyd blocked. I think Lloyd.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean Lloyd. I meant Nair.
Well,
Nair and Banks not blocking again.
But there's 20 targets to him during a freaking game. Yeah.
Well, after 10 games, like, do you think they were even talking about blocking in the film room?
Well, but my point being, what does that do in the receiver room if you are allowing that terrible of an effort blocking wise, right? And then still the same guys get trotted out. Like, what do you think that does to the third string?
That destroys your morale.
Yeah, you're just sitting there like, so I'm blocking in practice. They're not doing it in games, and they're playing all the time. Like, what do you think that does? And it was actually happening, right? Like, we're all armchair quarterbacks, but we were calling that, right? Everybody, if you just know football a little bit, you're calling that out.
How long has it been going on?
Dana rolled up and validated everything we were freaking saying.
How long has it been going on is the problem. Year and a half.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't have a ton of respect for the guy that was running the wide receiver room. Yeah. Guys kind of ran him over.
Oh, big time.
And he also had to deal with your top guys. Your top guys got injured or they didn't perform, and but again, that's on Rule. I mean, Rule made the hire. He put a coach who probably McGuire was better suited to be a quarterback coach at Nebraska than a wide receiver coach.
I mean, I was thinking, and this is not an indictment on him, but truly, if you're running a high school program.
But they have fixed that room. So I just want to, we're talking a lot about the past. They have fixed the wide receiver room.
Well, let's think about Millard South, for instance. They just lost their head coach. He's heading to the Phoenix area, right? So they're going to bring in a new coach, maybe a new OC. Like, legitimately, are you hiring Garrett McGuire right out of college on your high school staff? I'm not even saying that to criticize him as much as the decision to hire him.
No, I think if you're talking high school,
leapfrog all the way to a Big Ten.
Look, guys, let's
the
be
hire
honest.
Was recruiting. Had to be recruiting in Texas.
Yeah, let's be honest. Yeah. He was hired because his dad has done Matt Rule a favor and his friends. And Nebraska, Schmidt brought this up earlier, the transition. They made a mistake the first 2 years. They were enamored with Texas. They hired all these Texas connections. You know what? What has Texas done for Nebraska? Nothing. Okay? Now who's leaving the program? All these Texas connections. They've transitioned to Florida. Miami. All right? Made a mistake in going all in on a state and surrounding people that have connections there. And that state hasn't returned anything for you.
You got Bryce
at
Turner
least
and
they
Riley
did it.
Van Poppel and Jamal. What's his name?
But
Jeremiah Charles.
But some of those guys though were not your initial. They were already with somebody else. Okay, they were not. You went and got them. They were already in the fold. You had to convince them to stay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: is good on bad mistake early for Rule. Good on him that he realized the mistake and they've transitioned quicker, because there have been a lot of times like Frost stuck with things way too long, and then they couldn't get out of it. They had fallen too down deep in the hole. At least Nebraska made a transition earlier. It just, I think they're in a good spot to rectify some of their past mistakes, but at the end of the day, they got to win football games. And do they have the right people in place to win football games? Football games that matter, not against Northern Iowa, but football games when you have an opportunity to make a statement, you make a statement. And I think today, with everything that's gone on in the last month, Nebraska just simply winning today would be a nice little statement that, you know what? They have a football coach that got everybody organized, that are playing for him because this is a big deal for him. And they went out and won a football game against a good Boston College team. Granted, their two top players are out, but it's still a good football team.
Physical team. The last part on the Texas want versus Texas reality of the people that you lost, you kept that were supposed to get you in the Lone Star State. The one you let walk away was Ellsworth, right?
Yeah.
And he's coaching tight end. He's taking Borkature. Kids loved him. And he was a assist GA. Is that fair? Was that what he was here?
Yeah.
He was a GA, but you couldn't elevate him because you had Sat coaching tight ends.
Yeah, Elijah brought him up last night. Christian Ellsworth is going to be a dude. And by the way, we have to follow the process of Dana. Guys that are no longer in the program are just referred to as numbers. You notice how he referred to Borkature as 87.
87. Yeah.
So
that other guy.
Any comment about Nair is 18. Christian Ellsworth, who was a quarterback in high school out in Grand Island, is an up-and-comer in this business. And he ended up at Texas A&M. Mike Elko had a great start, bad finish, but he knows ball. That will be a name to watch as a big-time assistant coach moving forward who is young. Yeah, Elijah brought him up last night at our dinner, and he's that was a good pickup, and that's the connection there. But let's another indictment on Saterfield, because this is how we should end it. If somebody else is coaching the tight end room, Borkature's probably still here.
Yeah.
I mean, Borkature's got a chance to play in the NFL.
Yeah, good ball player. Fellas, let's do a prediction before we get out. And
good.
I like the indictment part, and I don't know. I think this field is freakish.
That's the thing. That makes
you loved it. You loved it as a kid, playing in the slopping in the rain out for backyard football.
No injuries that are going to keep you out for a whole year today.
Amen.
I mean, it is traditionally the worst field surface of any bowl game. You just no injuries that knock you out for a whole year.
Do you
on either side?
Hammer the overs or unders? It's got to be unders, right?
What is it?
In this weather, it's like 46.5, isn't it, Elijah?
Yeah. Hasn't moved. Let me check and see if it's moved at all with the weather forecast. Updated line: Nebraska down to 3.5. That's moved from 4 from earlier this morning. Still the favorite. The total is at 47.5. Opened at 45.5.
21-17, Big Red. That's confidence. In my
I will
voice.
go 24-21 Nebraska, and a guy who quietly has calmed the waters, John Hull, with a late game field goal, but not at the buzzer beater, but a game where Nebraska gets a lead late in the fourth and they find a way to hold on. Like they have the ball milking the clock. Wouldn't it be nice to have Nebraska a 4-minute offense today to win a game?
Yeah.
I'm going to take the overs today.
Okay.
I think with how fluid both rosters have been, losing a lot of key guys, I think you open yourself up today for busts.
So points. Okay.
Just busts. right? Just guys playing in positions that they normally shouldn't, and you could take advantage of them.
It's
yeah, I'll take the overs on that. Nebraska's only topped 21 points 6 times this year, 21 or more. Yeah, 6 games they didn't even get to 21.
Well,
so
another indictment guy. Look at how many times in his career at Nebraska scored more than 30 against a Power 4 team.
0 actually, because the defense got the old punt block and return to get it to 31.
For Wisconsin, you mean?
No, well, I'm talking about the guy we're talking, the indictments that keep coming down.
Yeah.
The one time he was Nebraska scored 31 in year 1 was
against Purdue.
Against Purdue, 7 of those 31 points was special teams.
Remember when Rule, by the way, said something along the lines of, "Hey, that might be my fault a little bit when it came to personnel." Like he was intervening on personnel when he was talking about how, hey, let's make sure we get this guy a touch and that guy a touch and this guy a touch and blah, blah, blah.
Is he intervening or is he covering?
Well, I'm just saying it's easy to indict Saterfield over this whole thing, but he's not the one that hired himself to be offensive coordinator, right? He's not. So you're the one that put him in that position.
But here's the thing. One final thing, and then I don't ever want to talk about him again.
One more thing.
Yes, there was no past history that said, "Hey, man, this guy is a slam dunk hire." When you lose, like look at the Kentucky fans when Shorts got hired by Nebraska, they were pissed. There was no South Carolina fan that was like, "Oh man, what's Beamer gonna do now?"
Thank you.
They were all like, "Hey, have fun." So there wasn't any like history that said, oh my God, he's going to be great. But here's Rule didn't get a couple of his hires he wanted on offense on his initial staff. So probably guys were in places that they should have never been in at a place like Nebraska, but you changed it. Okay. I give you that. Going into year 3, you have changed that and you've turned it over to somebody that's going to make those hires. You didn't let him prolong and go, well, I can't make a change with Saterfield because he got 1 more year on his contract. No, you got to make a hire because you got to win some football games.
Mm-hmm.
Sharpie, give me a score and we'll say adios.
24-21, John Hull with that late field goal. And John Hull ends the year and goes into spring ball as the number 1 kicker. And Tristan Alvano has to have a monster spring.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So you could have your place kick. Could you have your place kicker and punter taken care of in spring ball?
I think you already have your place kicker for next year taken care of personally with Hull. I think that's your guy. Could that change in the spring? Maybe. He's put together a strong campaign despite some issues with the operation. I think you got your guy there. I'll go overs in this football game. The wet field's a wild card. Usually you like unders there. But with how these teams like to run the heck out of the ball, at least that's what I think the game plan is going to be today. Boston College likes to run the ball. I think Nebraska is going to commit to it a little bit today. Couple deep shots here and there. You take it, see what you can do. It's harder to react than it is to attack, if that kind of makes sense on a wet field. So I'm going to take the overs. I'm going to go 34-17. Nebraska wins it. In a game that feels a little bit closer than that, but Nebraska pulls away in the second half. And you hit the overs, Nebraska covers.
Yeah, I'll go Nebraska 31-27. I agree with you, Elijah. I think it's going to be a lot more vertical stuff today. You can't be too cute. You're not going to be able to juke and not going to be able to do a ton of cutback kind of stuff. So that bodes well for a Fedoni. That bodes well for a Lloyd. I think you're going to get vertical a little bit today. Let Raiola test out that arm. And, yeah, I think, Nebraska is going to go above their season average in points. So what will it mean? We'll break it all down next Saturday.
100%. Whoever wins this game is the team that goes north-south with their offense more. You can't be playing sideline to sideline in a field like this. You attack in the running game, and when you go play action, you're going deep shots. You're not making your guys cut. You're making them attack. The offense that gets more north-south wins this football game. I think that's Nebraska.
Great point because of the field conditions. Like pass rushers can't stunt. They can't spin. It's basically straight ahead. So I think there will be lanes for Dylan to step up today and scramble if need be. Will he take advantage of those? Because a lot of the rushes will be straight up field. because of the conditions. So that A and B gap where Patrick Mahomes likes to scramble through, will Dylan take advantage of that?
Well, by the way, it worries me a little bit about Emmett in these conditions because he's got like Flintstone legs when he's running half of his plays. You know what I'm like? The guy is like chopping all over the place. It does worry me about him. Perfect game for Dowdell. Oh my God. Dowdell would have been lethal today.
Except for the whole rain and ball security thing, but I get you.
Yeah,
but
it's true.
At the running back position, here's a name to watch today, Quentin Ives.
Okay. Right.
I like him. He runs a little tall. I don't like that. He runs a little tall.
A little Quentin Castillo tribute. Clemson.
They like the running back room, guys. Yeah. They like Mekhi Nelson. Quentin Ives has come a ways during this bowl practice. Yeah. You're going to see Emmett, and of course they're going to feature Ramir because he's back home. Like you expect Ramir and Lenhart to have big days today because they're back home. But they like their running back room, and you're going to add Parker and Booth. So I think they're going to try and get a little run with Ives at some point today.
Okay.
Just to see what they have.
Ramir made a decision to start hitting holes harder before last year. He's good. He's good for today too. I'm glad you brought him up.
No,
let me pull the room. Maybe this is our last thought. I know Schmidt wants to get out.
No, we can keep going. Hell, we got 53 minutes till kickoff.
Prop bet.
I just got to piss.
Rainy field. Which Husker has the dirtiest jersey at the end of the game?
Better not be the quarterback.
John Bullock.
Yeah,
that's a good call.
Yes.
Because he's getting whipped to the ground by DBs or what?
Whoa.
Why?
No.
I hope he's not getting
tackles.
I hope he's not getting whipped to the ground by his own
John
DBs.
Bullock. Sorry. I was thinking of the other
Alex Bullock.
No.
Yeah. I was thinking of the other Bullock. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. It's a good call.
Kobe says Gifford. Well, that might be because it's Boston College getting his uniform dirty.
Is that him diving? Is that diving after a?
It's been a rough year. They need to have a dude at that position next year.
Yeah, Singleton's going to get dirty too. He's gonna hit.
Hey, do we think that Deshaun Singleton's going to come back next year? He's out of eligibility, but this JUCO ruling.
No, he could. Does he?
I would take him. I would take him back.
I like him
absolutely.
Yeah. Give me a second year. The bunnies here.
So in the comments,
well, Deshaun's got an NFL type frame. I think he looked better at the beginning of last year than he did for most of this season.
Yeah. Then he got hurt.
Yeah. So,
but he could come back, and at that position, I think you'd say, "Yeah, I'll take you back." I mean, to have some experience there.
Well, really fast. What'd you make of Kobe Brett's withdrawing his name from the portal? Because I know he's been working at the rover position.
He's coming back.
Yeah. He's a high level athlete. Kobe Brett.
Or is McCullough from Oklahoma? Is that your rover next year? I know they don't have a firm plan, but
I think so. Here's a guy that has already played against Nebraska this year, or has played in his career. Welcome to the portal world. Okay, one final thing here. Which Nebraska player is more likely after a big defensive play or a touchdown to have an Aaron Judge type bat flip celebration as a tribute to 99 at Yankee Stadium?
I think Ty does it.
Oh, I'm going Dylan. Dylan was the baseball player growing up. I'm not sure if you guys have heard stories about Dylan's arm from behind the plate as a middle schooler at the catcher position. Like
his pop time was elite.
Yeah, his pop time was like matching what college prospects were doing as a seventh grader. If there's any baseball guy on the team, it's Dylan.
How about Keelan Smith getting a touchdown and doing a tribute to Dad? Because Neil, with the Chiefs, Neil Smith would always do the old home run swing towards Kaufman.
Good call.
If Raiola calls his shot,
so
and then throws a deep ball,
he's going to be in the shotgun snap, and he's just going to point.
Yeah, pull a Babe Ruth, call your shot, hit Lloyd on a deep ball, put him in the Hall of Fame after that, and
that's
just
funny.
Like enshrine him.
I just hope somebody that is in the which would be behind the benches in the right field bleachers does the roll call like they do at the Yankee games.
I think that's so goofy. That's I'm going to get up in my soapbox and say every time I
Dylan Raiola, and then he acknowledges you, and you move on to the next guy, Emmett Johnson. Emmett Johnson. And, they run a play, and Emmett's walking back to the huddle, and he gives a little.
I prefer the Rockies right field tradition of selling
of nobody going to the games.
No. You go to the games because the bar out in right field, the Silver Bullet Bar,
it's good.
$2 Coors before first pitch.
Wow!
If you go to Rockies game next summer, well, no,
based on the pitching rotation, they got to go 2.
Yeah.
All right, Sharpie. Appreciate you. This was fun, brother.
God, we set the record today. And by the way, happy New Year to everybody. And thank you to everybody on the stream that joins us every Saturday.
We love you.
Yeah, straight up.
That just, what did the show go today? 2 hours, 15, 227?
Yes.
220?
We're at just over 220 right now. So
Chris has developed a UTI during this, which is great. We should probably let him go.
That's awful.
I mean, you mentioned it like 20 minutes ago, so I'm worried about it.
All
right, we'll be like, Bunny, grab me a cup.
We got a bowl game for the first time in 8 years. I don't care if it's a 6-6 team playing in miserable conditions on a horrible field. It's December 28th, and Nebraska is playing a football game.
It's good. Get some wings, get some steaks, get some beers, and enjoy. Elijah and I will be back at it. Real Red Reaction, 2:30-ish on KFOR. Kraynak, do you want a link?
Sure.
Hey, once the Broncos game starts, you might have to replace me. I'm going to be locked in on that.
We'll
That's right. We got 8 bowl games today and 3 NFL games.
Yeah. Football overload, man.
We'll talk about it all on the Average Joe Sports Show.
Yeah.
We'll send you a link for Wednesday night.
Bet you will.
We're live tomorrow too at 10:30. We may or may not send you a link tomorrow. But
I'll be waiting for it.
We'll send you a link
for email.
We'll send you a link for Real Red. I'll snag you and Billy D. But Sharpie, be good, bud. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. There's the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, Mark Kraynak.
It should be noted quickly here before we get out. The normal Monday through Friday Hail Varsity show on the air. We are off next Monday through Thursday. So if you want reaction, post game show today.
Yeah.
Schmidt and I's other venture with Bill Dolman and Gary Sharp, the Average Joe Sports Show tomorrow morning, live edition, 10:30.
Salt in the wound.
So we're gonna have reaction post game. We're gonna have reaction tomorrow, and then we have a couple of days off, and we will talk to you on Friday over the air. That is the one thing to note before we get out. One more thing.
All right, Kraynak, appreciate you. We'll talk about 2:30, brother.
All right. Be good, y'all. Cool.